Welcome to the Blue Lounge. Welcome to the stream. What a fantastic intro. I mean, after that intro, you want to get up and do some moves and whatnot. But listen, we're here to discuss the future of Chelsea Football Club. We are here to discuss the sale of Chelsea Football Club. Tonight is the night. In just under an hour, all bids must have been submitted for the purchase of Chelsea Football Club. In just under an hour, the deadline will be reached. Now, there are bids still coming through. And the Ryan Bank may accept bids that are late. They may accept bids that are late. So from what I understand it, it's 9 p.m. UK time, but it's also a flexible 9 p.m. It's not a hard 9 p.m. There may be a little bit of wiggle room for certain entities, certain consortiums in respect to how they can put in that bid. News has been coming out all day from the various journalists with their various agendas back in various groups. It's been a tennis match. It's funny how you watch the timeline and you see one person coming out with one story and literally within a couple of minutes, the other person comes out with a counter-dicting or a counteracting story. So it's been fun to watch, stressful, and we're gonna discuss it, analyze it, digest it, and continually update you with anything and everything that will be going around or going on in the timeline. I have with me Chris and DJ today, and I've asked them to do me a massive favor and to keep their eyes on the timeline, on the Twitter timeline, and to keep us updated. And both have responded to me. We are here to assist the Blue Lounge community. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to keep up with all the latest information in respect to this deadline day. Now, I will be addressing some of the information that we already have in a moment, telling you guys where we are in respect to some of the bids. And I'll be honest with you, and my focus is going to be on the Saudi bid. Now, I know there is a South Korean entity who has entered into the frame today. We'll be looking at them as well. We'll be looking at all the bids. Main focus is on the Saudi bid, and I will tell you exactly what is going on in respect to the Saudi bid. So, big up to everyone, and I will put the link in the chat shortly. But I want to address a few things first, and then I will put the link in the chat momentarily. Oh, listen, I have got with us one of my good friends and a journalist from the Chelsea community who has been on this channel in the past, and I've asked him to jump on to give us his insight, and he has just literally clicked on the link. So I'm glad to have Robert Pratley with us today. Robert, how are you? Welcome, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
That's all right, no problem. Apologies, I didn't see it earlier. I've sort of been, since last Thursday when the sanctions came in place the first time, this is now my 43rd piece of media that I've done since last Thursday.
Wow, you've been a busy man. You've been a busy man.
It's been quite a lot of whirlwind, so...
Robert, listen. I know you've been busy, and I know you don't have much time, but we are all very stressed at the moment. As you can imagine, Chelsea fans, we've been going through a roller coaster ride of emotion, of information, misinformation. I know you are very knowledgeable, and you have some good insight in respect to what is going on. at Chelsea Football Club. So could you please fill us in to the latest developments that you're aware of in regards to the bids, the timing, who's really, I mean, you got César Cancelo on one side and you got Matt Lowe on one side, and they both seem to be pushing one kind of idea. From your perspective, where are we in respect to the big bids, the major bids?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd caveat with a lot of people is that in a situation like this, again, although we are now ticking down to the deadline, a lot of preparation for bids will have been done beforehand, but a lot of people will be submitting them late on just to tweak the final things. So the time when a bid or a proper offer comes in isn't really so relevant or important. What's more credible is that bids, every bidding partner or all of the prospective, I think 200 parties that have registered an interest, was sent a package last Saturday, possibly Sunday, where they were outlined the process of the bidding and what they would need to display during the bidding. Now, to the best of my knowledge, this is something along the lines of that they need to show the initial ability to fund the club, i.e. in the next couple of months where there has been restricted funding, there's been frozen funding, so they would need access to immediate capital. They need to provide the short-term plan for what they're going to do until the end of the season, and I think also the season afterwards, and then also provide a long-term plan. As part of that, they've been asked to provide it for the men, the women, and the academy. Because, again, rightly, I think we'll all agree, the club is being viewed as one entity here in this sale. And so I think it would look particularly bad, especially considering the reputation the academy and CFCW have, for one of them to get left by the wayside. So that sort of leaves us with a bit of a conundrum now that there is a lot of people that would like to own Chelsea FC. There are a lot of parties that are going to also throw their hat into the ring, not being credible bidders, but to get themselves some publicity. And you've seen this with people like, Conor McGregor mentioning his interest in it. He was never going to likely be any sort of credible bidder. There have been an awful lot of, people behind the scenes. And I think it's now emerging that there's probably 8 or 9 proper offers that I think seriously will require some level of consideration. What I suspect will happen is that out of the 8 or 9, they will be whittled down to, say, 3. And these will be taken into next week, and some point next week, we will actually have a finalised offer. It's important to note that once an offer is taken, the steps afterwards, once Rain approve an offer, they will need to take it to the government, who will need to grant the necessary licence for a takeover procedure to begin. While the takeover procedure begins, the money will effectively be put into an account that we say frozen. And I think, at that point, it then becomes the government's remit what happens to it. I would like to believe it's going to charitable causes in the Ukraine and in Ukraine, because that's where, it should be going on a humanitarian level. With this current government, again, I'm afraid I have no confidence in that, and I'll try not to get too political, but I think they've handled the situation quite badly. The alternative, I suppose, is the funds just get frozen until sort of, Mr. Abramovic can legally claim them, which, no one knows how long that's going to be, which is why I think that's less likely. Once the funding has been provided, from what I understand at that point, the Premier League can then begin the fit and proper persons test, and I think it's now the ownership aptitude test. This is likely to be a bit important because there are a number of the owners that at various points there's stuff come out of them over the last couple of weeks that isn't pleasant. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't think that there's any way you become a billionaire without having a level of funding that requires you to be involved in some less scrupulous activities. However, I think it's quite clear that some of the bidders that have come out have particularly problematic aspects, whether it's, allegations of racism, sexism, various governmental links on a lot of different levels, and also, clandestine information as to where the money actually comes from. So I think the fit and proper persons test, I don't think Rain will want to put any party forward at that level that will not pass the fit and proper persons test, because A, it will be disruptive, B, it will be quite embarrassing, and C, I think it will increase the level of scrutiny on it. If I was to predict, I think that the 3 bids that are most likely to sort of be taken forward at this stage, based on what I know, is the Bowley-Weiss-Goldstein consortium, based on the fact that Todd Bowley has knowledge of owning several sporting franchises. He has experience on owning them both with men and women's sport. He has tried to buy Premier League clubs in the past. He has tried to buy NWSL clubs in the past. Hans-Jörg Weiss is well known for his involvements in humanitarian efforts and in philanthropism, and I think that will appeal to those that are interested in the charity side of the club. And finally, although Jonathan Goldstein is a Tottenham fan, he does have, significant knowledge of property development, which I think will bolster him well. I believe they've also announced today that they've got I can't remember if it's Oaktree or one of the capital management partners behind them that, mean they're actually overfunded on a bid. They've also obviously mentioned, Daniel Finkelstein and Sarah Sharon being involved in it. And they've promised fan representation. So I think their bid does tick a lot of boxes for what people would like from a sale. Obviously, with things like fan representation, I'm always very sceptical whenever anyone claims this because, fans notoriously don't get listened to by top Premier League clubs. That said, it's very rare a government has a sale, any sort of controlling stake in a sale. So it is possible that, there will be some leeway here. And I think the government will be keen to get the right owners, not necessarily the sort of richest owners, which I think is where the second bid I do think that may get brought forward is the Ken Griffin Ricketts bid, because they have experience owning sports clubs. They are financially, sensible. There is an awful lot of American knowledge and sort of, a lot of financial credibility behind the bid. However, there's also an awful lot of, very unpleasant stuff that's come out in the wash. Personally, I'd be, very unkeen on this bid sort of succeeding. I particularly think, any comments that were considered, Islamophobic or any sort of, particularly sort of, overtly racist comments aren't acceptable. And I don't think, with the state of where the football club is, that's what we need to be going on to. I think also you've got to say, his political links to Donald Trump, who is a incendiary character in politics, I don't necessarily think helps it. But I do think they will benefit from the fact that, from what I understand, they've put together a well thought out plan. They've, accounted financially for a lot of things. They are willing to address the stadium issue, which I understand some of the bidders aren't including that in their proposition. A lot of them are sort of saying, we'll come on to that later. Obviously, there's the roadblock of the CPO that people will have to navigate. But I think that they have a chance, certainly, of moving on to this next, level of the bidding. But I think at that point, that's when things like, the Chelsea fans' opinion might become more relevant, and it will be less about, what's financially credible and what's going to take the club forward. And I think certain people at the club will look at that and think that's not, sort of the way we want to go. The final one I do think will get brought forward, and this will be the really interesting one, is the Saudi media group. Obviously, there's only sort of been one real source regularly reporting their interest. I will just make a note on, Matt Law versus Nazar Katella. I know people have spoken to Matt Law about this, and he said that specifically, I don't have information on that bid. I'm not going to comment on something I don't have sources on. I want to just say, there's no point attacking him for not commenting on it. The last time he did that was during the ESL situation. He said something that was, slightly wrong, and people ripped him to bits. And so I can completely understand him being unsure. I think it's difficult, especially when you've got, bidding clubs. I suspect, the Bowley team are feeding some level of information out in the public domain. But I also think, it's very hard to get this level of information, and I'm sure there will be a lot of bids that will be financially, credible, but may not get forward, that we haven't heard about. There will be people in the background that have done it, or people, submit bids like, we've heard about this Korean sort of investment firm today that, from the looks of things, financially looks very very soluble. They have experience in football as well. There was now talk of being involved with Nick Candy, who's promised fan representation. That's the sort of late bid that, if that comes in, it could jeopardise the pecking order, but it requires, a lot of things to be right. Because I don't think, the government will not agree to a sale unless they think that any deal is, going to sort of complete, is going to go through. And Chelsea won't want a deal, hanging around. They won't want one that's going to take X number of time to complete. So the Saudi media offering is interesting because, again, they've put out quite a, all foreigners are, they've put out quite a comprehensive, plan, I suppose, of renewing key contracts, of investing in the stadium, a commitment to investing in the women's team, which I think was some people's concern given, sort of the status of women in Saudi Arabia in general. And I'm not saying, I want to make it clear when I talk about this bid, like I'm not talking or endorsing any of them. My own personal opinions, I think, on bids aren't important here. But what I will say is I think it's right for the right owners to take Chelsea forward at all levels, not just at, the sort of, men's team. I don't want to see, the women's side left behind. I would find it very, upsetting from that perspective, having had my involvement in CFCW in the last 2 years, and also seeing the academy show, because I think we would all agree that we've been pleased to see the academy more used in the last few years. But the Saudi media offering is, financially it's very credible. Obviously, it helped, a Chelsea fan obviously appears to be submitting the bid. So I think, that adds a level of, reputability is the wrong word, but a level of sort of conscientiousness behind it. Benjamin asking why I won't give my opinion, because quite frankly, there are some people in the bidding process, for example, the Ricketts family, them being overtly racist, I would write them out of any bidding whatsoever. And I would happily write them out of the bidding in the same way I would write out some of the smaller bidders that I think have come in that are only interested in the financial gains of the club and are just there, to asset strip. But my personal opinion is not important here because I'm not making the decision on behalf of Rain Group. I will urge everyone, if they're not part of the Supporters Trust, to join the Supporters Trust and also join the CPO, because there is a genuine chance that if we get, certain owners.
Yeah.
That,
I'm gonna cut you off for a second. I mean, you cover everything in such a concise and well presented manner that people would just want to sit down and listen to you talk. I mean, but I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
In regards to the decision to sell the club, from my understanding, Roman Abramovich tasked the Rain Group to oversee the sale before he was sanctioned, and this process will continue to take place within the same framework as was implemented prior to him being sanctioned. The only difference is it is now overseen by the British government in respect to the financial aspect of it, but the actual process. Am I right in thinking that the group will be taking the bids and assessing them based on the criteria that was put forward from Roman or from the club via Roman through Marina, and this is the criteria that we want, and they will assess it based on that, and then they will hand the club their top 3, top 6, whatever number of bids that have been put that fall under these brackets, and then Roman or whoever is tasked with picking the buyer will take that decision, or will it be the group themselves who, based on the conditions, will go ahead and pick the buyer? I mean, the point I'm trying to make is: does Roman Abramovich have a final say into who he is going to sell the club to?
So from again, this is a little bit murky because with the government sanctions being involved, I should actually comment that it's it wasn't necessarily out in the open, but it was becoming clear that Roman was planning to sell Chelsea, and that was before this predates things. This goes back to last summer after Chelsea won a second Champions League. There was a bit of a plan in place to maybe look at a sale, and it wouldn't have surprised me if one had maybe happened later in this year, possibly sort of after the summer window, maybe sort of looking at September, October, after one final sort of summer, I think, of financing, because it was becoming increasingly clear, I think, that once Chelsea won everything, the only trophy that Roman, or wasn't one under Roman's sort of period of ownership of the club, or custodianship, as I prefer to use, was the Women's UEFA Champions League. Going back to sort of the question you ask, I understand that Rain will make the decision based on the criteria given, and also on all of the bids in question that sort of get taken forward. I understand they need to comply with the set rules that Mr. Abramovich has set. However, I don't believe the club are taking a final say on the decision. I think they are trusting Rain with the sale, and they're trusting them because they have set the criteria, and they will, be prioritising bids that meet the, very strict and stringent criteria. I've been told it's anywhere between 10 points to 30 points long, the direct criteria that's sort of mentioned. And from what I do understand, it will be, bid one will be taken and they will say this is our priority bid. But for some reason, if this bid didn't materialise, then it would be bid two, and so on down to bid three. And if, none of those three materialise, I'm not really sure what happens. I think, it's quite clear to me that they will pick between the three bids. They'll pick one of them at least that will get through in order to ensure a sale happens, just for the club's solvency and the longer term future.
All right. Thank you for answering that. Rob, how good are you for time? How much time do you have available?
Yeah, I can have longer. Again, I've got time now. It's just I was getting off something else, so now I've got off that. I have some spare time.
All right, sweet. Can we have you with us up until the deadline and track the news with us? Are you available for that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm happy to.
Fantastic.
Again, I do have my phone on to see if anything late, does come out of the woodwork. But from what I understand, based on people that are sort of close enough to the process, they're not expecting anyone, real sort of heavyweight players to come out at the last minute. It's people that have, made intentions clear previously that they're going to bid. Someone asked what is the criteria. There is a lengthy list of criteria, but some of them, for example, that I know is the immediate, solvency and stewardship of the club, the immediate solvency and stewardship of all of the wages, the immediate solvency and stewardship of the Chelsea Foundation, a commitment to ensuring that Cobham remains an elite academy and remains one of the best in the world, a commitment to continue funding Chelsea women, a commitment to looking at rebuilding Stamford Bridge. I believe there's various things regarding player contracts as well. There is a commitment, I think, not to... it's something bizarre regarding not referencing Roman Abramovic for a period of time, or not, allowing, I think, the new owners to get their feet under the table. There is, again, about 30 bits of sort of criteria. Some of them are, more sort of holistic things than others, sort of, things that are more sort of spiritual, i.e., or sort of less holistic, but more sort of, related to, like, making sure the fans have a say in the club's future, etc. It's sort of quite a broad list of criteria, and depending on who you speak to, certain people say, the financial side's more important. Others say, it's whether they commit to the fan vision is more important. So it's a bit of a sort of murky water. Again, this is the first time I remember in my lifetime that there's been an open bidding process. In regards to, is it documented or off the record? It is documented in terms of that if you are one of the bidding parties, you have received the documentation, and you've received, a brochure from Chelsea FC about the purchasing and the different criteria that they'll be looking for. But unless you're part of the parties, I'm afraid you can't get that. And I believe they've also been told, you can't leak this to the media, because I think, then that would start muddying the water, because if someone else sees it and so, my bid doesn't have that, suddenly, they might be inclined to add it if there's media pressure.
All right. Listen, lads, let me welcome Podfather, Bobby Smoke Signals, Chris, and DJ to the stream. Lads, we're going to be here for a minute today. We're going to be addressing this topic up until maybe 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. tonight. I know I've asked DJ and Chris to keep an eye out on the Twitter timeline and keep us updated with the relevant stories and the relevant tweets. Podfather, Bobby, I know you're keen and eager to jump in and ask Rob some questions. So I'll open the discussion to everyone in just a second. Listen, people, Rob, for those of you who are not familiar with him, Rob is a Chelsea journalist. He's also a key part of the Chelsea socials. He has a lot of work within the Chelsea community, and specifically from what I know, with the women's football team. So, it's good for us, and it's an honor for us to have him on the stream with us tonight, and we will take advantage of him and ask him as much questions as we can to get a better insight of where Chelsea Football Club is right now and where we will be going in the future, hopefully in a positive light. So I'm going to let the senior gentleman here kick us off. Bobby, what do you have to ask Rob? Take it away, brother.
Yeah, hi, Rob. Hi, Mo.
Hello.
You know, this is one topic that I have been watching without too much of an opinion, simply because the bottom line is this. You know, anybody buying Chelsea has to have extremely high finance. Chelsea is no longer even in the single ownership bracket. It's beyond that now. And to be brutally honest, if they want to mean anything, they must come in with the full intentions to take it that next level beyond what Roman did. So the stadium, clearly the consolidation of all arms of the club, contracts, and so on, and of course, definitely the tying down of Thomas Tuchel to an even longer contract. So all those are a given. You know, it's almost not even worth talking about because it is a given, and that is super high finance because beyond the purchase, that's a heavy initial investment, much bigger than the initial investment and purchase that Roman made at the beginning. But that's not surprising. It's the progression.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I hear about fans' involvement as well, because fans' involvement is going to be tied to the finance. You know, if fans are not going to get involved with Chelsea and start saying, "Oh, start cutting corners." They'll be getting involved with Chelsea to make sure that the best is there. We scout and obtain the best players and sustain success on the pitch. So really fan involvement, I don't know. I'm not too sure how that would even work. I think Roman always had that blueprint. He had also invited fans to the occasional appearance on the board, and I can see that continuing. What level of fan involvement? Well, there must be a strong fan representative. And I'm already beginning to see that with the emergence of people like Sebastian Coe getting involved, although his political ties might cause some wranglings for those that, believe in the opposition to that. People like Nick Candy himself, and most recently the names of Luca Vialli and John Terry being mentioned. So if it's that level of fan involvement, it kind of makes sense to me, because not only do they have the influence, but in the case of people like Vialli and Terry, they were ex-players. So, I mean, it's a wait-and-see situation, isn't it? I mean, recently I've just heard there's a South Korean group getting involved. I don't know who's fronting the Saudi group, but I personally feel they have an extremely good chance. Todd Bowley, people don't really like American involvement, but he's making the right sounds. It'll be interesting. I think the key for all this is not just getting a fair price for the club, if you can use that term. It's definitely guaranteed that the money won't go to Roman. It is who will be able to facilitate a quick sale. So it's about the people bidding, making themselves free of any sticking tape to the process. That's my belief, and I don't know what.
I do agree, and I think that to me that's one of the few issues you might have with the Saudi media group bid. Again, there's no obvious government involvement in the bid, and I'm not going to suggest there is any obvious government involvement, but there is going to be red tape when the Premier League want to check it out. And one of the big issues I can see being raised with it is the fact that if there is any kind of government involvement, it could then be linked to PIF, and PIF obviously own Newcastle. We can't pretend they don't own Newcastle, and so it would cause a conflict of interest issue. people talk to me and say, Newcastle set a precedent, so it's okay. They did, albeit it took 17 months in a legal battle, which, ultimately ended up playing out in court to get a sort of deal done. So I think that's, to me, one of the few issues that there are with the Saudi media group is I think, that question could easily be raised. The government could refuse to issue a license on that right. And so as a result of this, it could be, someone says, is there any information regarding any £3 million bid and where has it come from? I would not worry about the exact value of any bid that's made or made public. So I think it was the Turkish gentleman claimed he'd made some bid and that it was going to be accepted and it was halted. As soon as you start hearing numbers being thrown around in the public domain, I highly doubt Chelsea will want someone publicly to know exactly how much the club was sold for. This is not the same as 2004 when Roman bought it, and the figure was so eye-wateringly sort of high. Everyone wanted to shout it from the rooftops of the £140 million. Why is he spending that on the club? With the this case, I think they will want it to be an undisclosed fee. I think they'll be less interested in the finances side of the sale by the nature of it. And I think that's that's the big thing for me, is that the finances are slightly somewhat irrelevant for me because the people that are going to be bidding are going to be financially able to spend the money. I don't think that Rain are going to put forward any bidders that want to that aren't financially credible or want to asset strip the club, because I think there's enough interest in there. Someone raises a good point about new owners and new grounds. I'll discuss that in a second because that's a good point. But I think, that's to me one of the only barriers you can see for a Saudi media group bid, assuming that everything is bona fide behind. Again, without knowledge of who, is making the bid, who is fronting it, who's involved in it. I'm not going to comment on whether it should or shouldn't come forward from a business sense. On a sort of personal level, again, as I've said, I want to, as long as they are funding every level of Chelsea Football Club, I think it's less important's the wrong word, but I think that's, the key priority here has to be protecting jobs and protecting livelihoods. Regarding the owner's point about moving into a new ground, they can't, up sticks and just go without the pitch owner's agreement. However, they can make an agreement with the pitch owners, for example, at the Earls Court site that was mooted a couple of years ago, before it was eventually decided to be unsuitable. The pitch owners agreed to that. I believe the pitch owners also agreed to Battersea Power Station when that theory was put forward and, plans were put forward on that. The bridge, I think people forget that on the actual bridge site, it's difficult to build up higher because of government laws regarding, electricity cables and sort of pylons. And so you need to agree to a massive project of moving the electricity sort of supply for London, which is not an easy thing to do. Could put people out of electricity for a long time, so likely isn't going to get planning permission. But I think, eventually there needs to be an acceptance that refurbishing needs to be made in some way, shape or form. I think a lot of the bids that do get, serious consideration will put that at the forefront of it, because I think that is the big question now for Chelsea Football Club, is sort of the stadium. Someone says with enough capital they can move stadiums if they wanted to. In theory, yes. Although again, the CPO would have a deciding say on this, and the CPO did block Roman's attempts to move before, and look at moves beforehand.
Can I please make a comment about this?
Yeah.
First of all, about the CPO. Yes, I mean the CPO can only block in terms of perhaps the naming of the club should they move. If they refuse to relinquish the name Chelsea Football Club, there is scope should the new owners, dig their heels in, which I doubt they will, to, alter a few letters at the end of Chelsea and call it something else, basically. Yeah. And also there is a slight danger in the pitch owners not being cooperative should there be a reasonable need to move, as you rightly said, the Battersea Park move and Earls Court, because now the stakes are higher. And if these people coming in want to be difficult, they could say, right, okay, you hold the pitch, we'll sell all the property in and around there and just crowd you out on a piece of green that means nothing and move anyway. So diplomacy has to be both ways. The other point was, oh gosh, I've almost forgotten the other point. What was the other thing you mentioned about the club and the purchase? Please, my mind.
Are you talking about the time period? The court?
My mind's gone.
Do you want us to come back to you? Do you want us to come back to you in a minute?
We'll come back to
Yes,
it.
yes,
We'll come back to it.
please.
Yeah. Let me go to Podfather. Podfather, do you have any questions? Welcome to the Stream Pod.
Yeah, hello. How's everyone doing?
Doing good. Fantastic.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are you surprised that the valuation has been met, seeing as, at first some people were surprised that I think Roman said he wanted $3 billion for the club, and it would be probably the most expensive sports franchise sold probably in history. So are you surprised about the rumors that the price was met? And also with I think the Todd Bowling chap, he was saying that I think I saw a report saying he would be able to complete the transaction by the Brentford
2 weeks.
home game.
Yep.
How big of an advantage is that if he can make good on that promise?
So I'll start off with the bowler question because I think that's the easier one to answer. I think it's a big significant advantage if bids can be completed quickly, because as soon as the bids are completed and the finances are in, sanctions are removed, and suddenly the whole situation becomes less uncertain. There's no longer caps on how much can be spent on travel. There's no longer caps on tickets. You can get fans back in the stadium en masse. Effectively, you can go back to running a football club again, rather than sort of running the current entity at the moment, which I would argue is a football club in name, but in reality is a stunted sort of sporting operation. So I think that's quite a bonus. Again, that time frame is, I think, optimistic. It depends on how quickly Richard Masters and the Premier League fit and proper persons test take. It is worth noting that it is possible behind the scenes Bowley has found out what that involves and done the groundwork, because he tried to buy clubs before, and the fit and proper persons test hasn't changed. So it is possible he's done all the necessary groundwork regarding it. Regarding your other question, do you mind just repeating it?
I was wondering, are you surprised that the
valuation?
It seems that the valuation has been met, given the fact that the naming rights for the stadium are not available at the moment, or the pitch issue that you guys spoke about, and also if you could highlight if there's any financial fair play issues going forward as well for the club.
Right, yeah, I'll do the FFP thing first, because I see lots of stupid things about the FFP. For some reason, rival fans seem to have it in their heads that the private debt that Ford Sam Capital have to Chelsea is relevant to FFP. It's not, for a number of reasons. Firstly, a lot of the money predates FFP's involvement and therefore is disregarded from any calculation. The backbone of FFP actually relates around a very specific calculation, which I do have recorded, and I have made various copious notes on it sort of over the last couple of days, because I've been looking into this, because I was like, actually, is there anything on this? So FFP at its core requires clubs to do the following. It requires the break-even requirement, which requires every club participating in UEFA competition, of which there were 238 clubs in 2020, to keep losses down to no more than €5 million over a 3-year period. These losses need to be based on sporting losses, so regarding transfers, operating profit, operating costs, prize money in, and revenue. It does not involve anything regarding stadium costs, regarding administration costs, regarding operational costs outside of the sporting sphere. Most of Roman Abramovich's initial money was regarding buying the stadium and upgrading the stadium initially, and then upgrading Cobham training facilities to make Cobham elite. And then a huge portion of it goes on transfers before 2012. Since 2012, Chelsea have met financial fair play regulations every single year. A lot of people are going to be annoyed that there's a £1.5 billion debt getting written off in this transaction. There are two very easy ways Chelsea to get around this. Number one, Chelsea can just say it was converted into equity before sale. There's no way to prove this. There's no way to check it. There is, it would fall down in court. Number two, and this is, probably the one I think Chelsea will go with, is they will point out that the cost of the actual financial fair play is irrelevant because there was no evidence before the Ukraine sanctions that Roman Abramovich was going to call in the debt. And even when sanctioned, he has not tried. Even when he decided to sell the club before sanctions came in place, he was not going to call in the debt. If it was taken to court by the other Premier League executives, I suspect it would get thrown out very, very quickly because there's no legal precedent. Chelsea have not broken any laws. And again, they could cite numerous examples, such as when the Cronkies took over Arsenal and wiped a significant amount of debt. And also, more recently, when Wolves were taken over and in the Championship, wiped £120 million of debt. So in short, that's a frivolous claim. Regarding the valuation point, I'm not surprised because I think it's one of those, again, people forget, I think, the entity that Chelsea Football Club is nowadays. It is a global institution and it has, facilities at so many levels, at so much involvement, not only, from grassroots level upwards in England, but also around the world now. It has a hugely successful presence in both men and women's sport as well as at youth level, and a hugely successful charity foundation. What I do think is really interesting is that with Chelsea having met this bid, if there is future attempts to try and, say, sell Manchester United on the table, the Glazers will look at this sale and will think that, the United brand is worth maybe twice, 3 times this amount. So they will be looking to start, 9 or 10 billion if they're selling the club. And I think then that will mean that there will be a very, very select band of people who are able to buy it. And that will possibly, muddy the waters for a future sale. I will also say, I think that, in terms of valuation, I always, apply the pinch of salt theory of any valuation. A club is worth as much as someone is willing to pay for it, whether that's £1 or £1 billion, £2 billion, £3 billion.
Absolutely.
The money isn't really relevant.
I remember my question now, please.
Yeah.
If I can.
Go ahead.
It's to do with the structure of the stadium.
Okay.
The point you made about building up. And if I remember rightly, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a friend of mine who's into construction. And he was telling me that, look, that the Stamford Bridge plan was, the bird's nest plan. It was an upward and downward build.
Mm-hmm.
It was an upward build as far as it could go, and downward build as far as it could go up to I think there's some water underground that's
correct.
And I think the railroad, but they felt that they could go down enough to compensate for how much further up they would need to go to increase the capacity by, is it 17 to 20,000? So I think the likes of Nick Candy and indeed Bowley, who is using the involvement of the Spurs fan in his team, to my understanding, is because of construction. I think that guy is into construction, and that would be his only remit per se. The interesting thing is the Bowleys that I found fascinating today is this new involvement of a group worth, I hear something within the region of 45 to 60 billion. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you see, this is the sort of money that you need to take over a club like Chelsea. It's not negotiable. You've got to be in the big boy league.
Yep. And I will say, I think this also will be a boon to Bowley, this information to come out, because it further shows that they're now overfunded. So if there was any concern about the longer term capital, they can point to that and say, we've got sort of £60 billion worth of capital in theory behind us. So I think that, is a boon to them. But again, I tend to avoid the finances around it because the credible bidders that get put forward are all, going to have obscene amounts of money. And I must admit, I find it very hard when we talk about these figures, in sort of such casual, easy terms, because they're just, absolutely ridiculous numbers that we're sort of talking about. I remember last summer when we were discussing a deal for Haaland, that could have reached upwards of sort of $250 million, and I thought that was obscene at the time. So to hear, 2.3 billion being mentioned and, £5 billion being spent on refurbing stadiums, etc., it does sort of baffle my mind a little bit.
Rob, I want to ask you, this is a point that was brought up many a time on previous streams, in respect to Marina Granovkaia and Petr Cech and their future within the organisation after it is sold, in your opinion, is there room for them? Will they be part of the new organisation? Will they be part of a tandem transition? Would they? How would it work with them? I mean, where's the future for those two in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult at this moment in time to predict exactly who will and won't, stick around. In terms of Marina, there is certainly a feeling from inside the club that they would like to keep her on in some form of capacity. However, I think as part of a sale agreement, the government will look to see her moved out because of her links to Roman Abramovich. And the same with also Eugene Tenenbaum and Bruce Buck, who previously had significant involvement. Will there be a period of transition? I suspect so. This is standard, really. Whenever it sort of happens, usually you'll have an interim. Sometimes you'll have an interim team come in, such as what happened at Liverpool when they sold between Gillette and Hicks and FSG. You had Sir Martin Broughton come in and manage the club through the period as chairman and sort out the sale. I think that most likely Marina will be gone. Petr Cech is a more interesting one because Cech's role is sort of a quasi-sporting board role. I think that new owners would likely want to keep him around because he's got that link to Tuchel, and it's been suggested he and Tuchel work quite well. I think Chelsea would like to keep him around for the connection to the club. Petr is obviously very well spoken. He has sort of been the face, effectively, of this, of the only board discussion so far on this, and has come out and faced questions on it. So I think he would probably be kept, or would be what they'd want to keep him involved in, but ultimately it's going to be individuals' choices.
All right, brilliant. I want to bring in DJ Sav, Chris, and Eric Blue. Lads, welcome to the stream. Do you have any questions for Rob, or do you have any insight you want to give us? Don't all jump at once.
I've got nothing's come on my I've seen nothing that's come up on here as yet. I think what I wanted to really ask Rob was actually he mentioned Petr Cech's involvement there. We've seen some of the owners that have been mentioned, possibly, or the people that are putting bids in for Chelsea. We've seen that they're talking of obviously developing Stamford Bridge. Doing the Chelsea ladies team and the rest of and also the youth team, the youth academy. The one thing I'll mention, you've already just mentioned him, is Thomas Tuchel. What is his future in all this? Because obviously we've been obviously seeing the links to Manchester United since this whole thing's come out. He's come out today and literally closed those links down. Are we certain that the new owners that are going to come in are going to keep him around and possibly offer him a brand new contract and maybe change his role from head coach to manager?
I would be amazed if anyone came in and, moved Thomas Tuchel out. I think it would be absolute suicide for any owner. This is not a situation like when Roman sort of first took over, where there'd been a sort of good he left, the first year for Ranieri, and then it became very clear that, he wanted to change coach anyway. I think Tuchel, has conducted himself, and also Emma Hayes on the women's side, have conducted himself with incredible statesmanship and integrity in recent weeks. They have, been in the eye of the storm. They have answered questions that, quite frankly, should never have been posed to them because it's not their position to answer them, and they have done so with respect and dignity. I think the first thing any new owners would be coming in to do would be offering them assurances and would be setting up new deals for both. I think on Emma's case, it's less important because, from what I understand with her role with Chelsea Women, it's pretty much a case that at the end of the year they both meet and say, do you want to continue? And if the answer is yes, they sign on the dotted line because of, Emma Hayes is an institution for Chelsea Women. In Tuchel's case, I think, the last couple of weeks, it's been very clear that, other clubs are looking at him. I hope, from what I understand, there's absolutely no problem from Chelsea's point of view. He's just keen to be rid, I suppose, of this issue at this moment in time and go back to focusing on the football. On a wider sort of point, I'm told he really enjoys working in the current structure of Chelsea because it's, quite devolved and he can actually focus on the football. There's not situations like PSG where there's a sporting director whose opinions have to be pandered to. There's also not a lot of egos in the Chelsea dressing room. There are an awful lot of players there that are, young players that are sort of, very hungry to work. And it is not the sort of place where you've got players that, are demanding to play just because of, on name alone, which is the exact opposite of what you get at, say, Manchester United, where there is an awful lot of, political meddling, let's say that, from above, and an awful lot of, cross wires. The entire structure at Manchester United requires overhauling, but that's its own separate stream. So I think, I don't think there's any, worry about Thomas Tuchel staying at Chelsea. I think, to be honest, the first thing new owners will do, it'll be an easy sort of win for new fans, will be coming in and giving him a long-term deal, giving him assurances he'll be back in the summer market.
Rob, you mentioned the players there. From the information that you have, how are they coping with all the turmoil that's been surrounding the club over the past few weeks?
Again, I can speak on. I'll start with CCW because, again, at the end of games, we're lucky enough to get to talk to them. Most of them haven't really been. They've been bothered in the sense that they know it's been distressing fans, but they've been focusing on football as the distraction, and they've been working on the basis that the football is meant to be a respite for the fans, so we need to play well and do well, and they've been making a real effort to come together and talk to fans. They do anyway, really make an effort, all of them, to come over and speak to them, and sort of be very interactive. On the men's side, I'm told again, it's sort of quite similar. There is a feeling that they need to be, represent the club in the best light possible during a difficult time. They recognise it's not really their fault that it's happened, but it is something they just have to, deal with. It's not Thomas Tuchel's fault. It's not the fans' fault. And in a way, if they can just focus on the football, and at the moment they are managing to do that, then, this will be over relatively quickly. I think it is worth noting that certainly behind the scenes, a lot of the senior players have really stepped up. Azpilicueta, Jorginho, a couple of other senior players in the squad have made it clear that Kai Havertz is a junior player, but and there are several other seniors in the squad who've made it clear that they'd be willing to, help with money if it needs, to pay for transport and pay for costs to travel to games, to sort of pay for their own, peace of mind, I suppose, because it's easier to fly than it is to sort of travel on sort of coaches. I'm not going to pretend, a 5-hour journey to Middlesbrough on a luxury coach doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world, but I can understand why players wouldn't want to do it. It does take you out of routines, etc. It does mean you can't spend as much prepping for matches. But I understand that there's been a big step up, and there's a feeling certainly behind the scenes, the worst of this is over effectively, and it's now sort of moving on to a swifter resolution and sort of planning for future.
All right. Talking about the players, we heard recently that Tony Rudiger had agreed a contract with Chelsea Football Club, but it was the signing on fee that was being worked out, and poor timing. You can address it whichever way you want, but the deal wasn't completed, and then we became sanctioned. If you were a betting man, would you say that Rudiger will be staying for next season?
Honestly, my heart and gut actually say yes, because I think he is very keen to work with Thomas Tuchel. I think he really likes it. It's very clear he's very settled in London, and I think his primary offer that he wanted to get is no longer on the table. There are secondary offers from Bayern. There are secondary offers from other people. Someone, asking if I do know, doesn't know. I'm not sure what he's saying in regards to that, but I would say that I think, from a gut feeling, yes, he will stay. But I think the longer that it, drags on, the more and more likely you are to suddenly get someone who comes out and says that they don't, that they don't sort of have the assurance and the probability. Obviously, careers are finite, and Rudiger is at that stage now where he probably, gets one more last big contract. And I think, he'll be looking for those financial sort of assurances. Certainly, I wouldn't rule out the first thing that, new owners come in to try and do being sort of, sorting out these contracts, because I think, again, that's another easy, quick win for new owners when they come in. However, it is sort of going to all depend on what the money's right, and sort of from a operational point of view, whether they can afford to sort of, agree to these big wages on the basis that then you've got a transfer window coming up in the summer. And so if X player, you want to join, sees that X is on, £250,000 a week, suddenly their wage, request shoots up by a significant amount.
Rob, I'm seeing a lot of comments discussing the Saudi media group. And in respect to the bids, we've been hearing 2 billion, 2.5, 2.7 by the Saudis. We've heard a couple of 3 billion bids. In respect to the decision, will it be made solely or primarily on the value of the bid, or the mission statement, the plan of action that the bidders are looking to implement? What's the balance regarding the money and the agenda that they will be employing with Chelsea?
First, I want to apologise to Gabriel because I thought he was referring to me when he was sort of commenting. Apologies, I misunderstood that. Regarding the Saudi sort of the Saudi bid and sort of the value of bids, again, I try and avoid value of bids when they sort of come in, and also I've seen ludicrous numbers are posted this week about net worth and so is worth X. The amount of money that something is worth is, again, how much is willing to be put into it and how often they're willing and how regular they're going to sort of put bids in and put cash into the club, and also what they're going to take out of the club. I think that's equally as important. In terms of how important it is versus fan vision versus finances, I think it's worth not pretending there is a financial commitment to running Chelsea Football Club that bidders have to be able to show and have to maintain. At the same time, I do think because Roman has put out this criteria for the sale, that the more criteria a bid meets, the better chance it has of going forward, and also the better chance it has of a government or the government actually allowing a license to take it forward. Because I think that's the other big sticking point we all sort of don't really know, is if there's a bid that is financially credible, but for some reason the government don't like the look of it and they block it, then effectively Chelsea have to then pick another bidder and go through that same process again. That could delay everything that little bit more. So I think there's definitely, it's probably sort of a 50-50 split. I wouldn't like to pretend there's one more significant one. I mean, if we were sort of debating just purely on sort of finances in terms of offers, so far the rumours are the Ricketts family have made the biggest financial offer. But again, they're, we question sort of their standing from an ethical point of view. And also, they haven't really commented on their plans for the club, at least sort of publicly. They've just, said it's an opportunity for an investment. And I think fans will be more keen to hear the actual plans and sort of get behind an owner that has, clear plans rather than sort of the issue. And as someone points out, we have now passed the 9 p.m. deadline. So,
yep.
By now we will now be in the end game.
Rob, would you hazard a guess to who would be the top three here? From what we know, I mean, the Ricketts family, the Saudi media group, and maybe Bowley. Is this where we are?
Yeah, I would say I suspect those three. Again, this Nick Candy bid that's come in, there is clearly, financial weight behind that now. And I think Candy having had links to the government and also having, being a Chelsea fan, I think will stand him in better stead than he did earlier in the week. He's also, had other sort of links. Obviously, Luca Vialli's apparently been involved in sort of it. And, I want to just also on the point say, I hope Luca Vialli continues sort of, to in his battle against his various sort of illnesses again. I'm sure every Chelsea fan sort of wishes him sort of well. So I think they probably are the three front runners. But it'll be very interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if, say, two of them end up being front runners and then we hear a bid out of nowhere that's come in behind the scenes that meets boxes but just hasn't been very well publicised. And that wouldn't necessarily really surprise me if that maybe usurped the Ricketts bid, because I think the Rain family will have taken notice to the comments about the Ricketts family. The Rain group will have made notice to those comments in recent days, and I think that will also the government will have also seen that as well.
When will we have an indication to where this is leading? I mean, deadline just passed. How long do we have to wait? What do you reckon?
I would expect you'd probably start hearing things in terms of the preferred bidders maybe on Sunday, possibly Monday. I think that it is unlikely to be tomorrow. It may be tomorrow. But I think Rain will want time to, assess bids, particularly those that have come in late on, assess them fairly, and then put forward, the next steps. It's becoming increasingly, clear that, again, 27 bids were in as of 5 o'clock this evening. There's clearly been subsequent bids in. So, I imagine you've got 35, 40 maybe bids that have come in. Obviously, not all of these are going to be credible, and some of them are going to be able to be, ticked away quite easily. But if it comes down to, say, picking one more for a final 3, then it's going to be quite difficult to sort of differentiate some of them.
I'm looking at Eric Blue, and I'm wondering if he has a question for you.
Yes, thanks for having me, Mo.
Pleasure.
Fantastic conversation. I do have a question, and hopefully I didn't forget. I may have just forgotten as you said it. Let me try and think. Okay, so it was regarding trying to remember now. So obviously
I can come back to you. I can come back to you if you want.
I think you need to.
I'll come back to you. All right, Chris, do you have a question for Rob? Chris? All right, Chris is not here. Does anybody have a question for Rob? I can go to the chat if you guys want. If you guys don't.
Yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you with the question.
All right. Let me have a look in the chat and see where we are. This consortium that Nick Candy is building up with the South Koreans that are coming into it today. South Koreans haven't really ventured in this part of the world when it comes to football teams and sports in this kind of magnitude. Do you think this could be a positive step, as in it will open Chelsea to a massive market in Asia? I mean, what's your take on the strength of Nick Candy's bid?
Nick Candy's bid is interesting because it is very much a global bid. I've been told there are investors from Korea, there are European investors, there are British investors, and there are American investors in this. So it's quite a large consortium. On one hand, that obviously opens up a lot of different marketing potential, a lot of different contacts. On the other hand, it potentially leads to, quite a difficulty managing the consortium. Who fronts it? Who makes the decisions? Do you have, conflicts of interests within the consortium? Do you have certain people wanting, certain things? Someone said, "Is it Saudi versus Candy?" I'm not so sure in that regard, but I would sort of say that I think, in terms of the investment side of things, looking into the South Korean company, as I spent some time doing this afternoon, they have had a lot of investment in sport. They've been very invested in the South Korean national team. They clearly know their stuff. So this isn't a case of people coming out of absolutely nowhere. I would never, ever, ever seek to discourage any interested parties that want to, increase the global presence of Chelsea. I think Chelsea are a global brand, and I would never, ever discount any party that wants to try and do that in a credible and cogent manner. And most importantly, one that reflects the club in the right light. I will say that someone asked if Saudi media did the bid. Yes, they did. They've put in a bid, whether it's the £2.7 billion, 2.5 billion, 3 billion that keeps being banded around. I wouldn't worry about the numbers, in all honesty. I am sort of told the winner, when will it be announced again? Sort of, that will be sometime next week. I will sort of say, in regards to Nick Candy's bid, things I think that he does have going for him is that he's clearly got other Chelsea fans involved in it. He's got a global sort of presence. He's got government links, and he is, he has promised fan involvement. I think things going against him, the government have warned against political bidding, and this could very much easily be seen as political bidding. There have been questions about Mr. Candy's involvement with foreign companies and his management of companies. Again, there have been first-hand stories of that going around on Twitter of creative differences, shall we say. And thirdly, I think also, Nick Candy made the public eye last year for the wrong reasons by being involved in one of the lockdown parties that everyone seemed to be having in Britain who shouldn't have been having. who was in some form of government office. And I think, that will be regularly sort of parroted out, and it gives an easy stick to beat with. I think it's credible in terms of the finances, and I think it's admirable that a man who, genuinely clearly is, whatever you think of him from a political standpoint, he is genuinely a Chelsea fan. He clearly wants what's best for the club. Whether that is the winning bid, I think remains to be seen.
Okay. Go ahead, Pod.
Yeah, I was just wondering. So basically, do you think Chelsea's potential involvement in the Super League could be a factor in why the price is potentially high? And the second question I was going to ask was, so when Newcastle were dealing with their takeover, at that point was the whole test about whether they're government linked or government owned, was that part of the fit and proper test at the time when PIF made their application to buy Newcastle?
So I'll start off with the first question because I think that's the easier one to answer. Yeah. I think in terms of Super League, I don't think it necessarily has significantly inflated the valuation. I think ultimately, whatever happens to Chelsea, they'll be dining at Europe's top table, and they will be competing at the top level in European football. I will say that I think this is one of the concerns people do have about any potential bidders, and this is an interesting thing about the Bowley-Weiss Goldstein consortium, is that Todd Bowley has been very against the Super League publicly, and has spoken out against the idea of Super Leagues quite publicly. So I think that would be interesting if he then did take over, whether it ended up going forward to this one. Going sort of on to the sort of second point and your sort of broader question about the fit and proper persons test. One of the big mysteries about the fit and proper persons test is no one really knows what exactly it entails. There's been an awful lot of scrutiny of the fit and proper persons test as what actually, does determine fit and proper persons. The issue with PIF actually came more due to the fact that there was the BQ Sport piracy issue and the beIN Sport piracy legal challenge that was made, and then that exposed the government links and caused it to all come to a standstill. However, I do think with the way that happened, it will be imperative in any sort of bid that they can clearly prove there's no links to the government whatsoever. Because I think as soon as there is government links, they will use the argument that that's linked to PIF, and therefore it's a conflict of interest and can't be allowed forward.
All right. Thank you for that. Let me bring in Eric. He's remembered his question. So, Eric, take it away, brother.
Yes, thank you. I actually have two questions now, so I have another one. I think the first one is it's a basic question. So, are there any consortiums who are interested in Chelsea?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so, very simply, yes.
Okay, so could you name like maybe one or two?
No. The couple that I know of, like one of them I don't consider them to be a credible bidder. The other one, they have specifically made it very clear that although they are bidding, they want to be kept, quiet in the bidding process.
Right. Okay.
So that there are private individuals and there are not so much consortiums, but sort of partnerships, I think is the best way to phrase it, of people that, are jointly pooling funds to go ahead and buy it. But one of them would be running the sporting operation and the other would say run the commercial operation. It's not, people tend to forget that even with Roman Abramovich being, the sole owner, Roman Abramovich by no means runs the football club. It is, very much a team of people at the top in the directors and then trickling down from there.
Okay. So that's a very straightforward answer, and so obviously that means that most likely Chelsea will be bought by a consortium. That's basically what that means. Okay. So the second question is, so how do you believe the transfer will be done without Roman obviously getting any kind of profit from the sale? How do you think it would be done?
Very simply, it's very easy. Effectively, what would happen is the government would temporarily, during the sale process, seize the asset of Chelsea Football Club and would seize the right to Chelsea Football Club. the money would be paid into an account that would then be frozen. And again, this would either be donated to charitable causes in Ukraine or frozen for Mr. Abramovic to claim if sanctions leave, or potentially, squirreled away. I'm not really sure what would end up happening to it. And then the new owners would take control of the club. Again, it's worth noting that Roman doesn't actually own Chelsea Football Club PLC. He owns Ford Sam Capital, who invest the money into Chelsea Football Club, which again, is a way of getting convenient tax breaks. It's not scrupulous, but every other club does it, so it's no surprise to see Chelsea do it as well. And it also does mean that if you seize, Ford Sam, then Chelsea effectively can cease. You seize Chelsea Football Club, then effectively it can be sold without Roman's involvement.
All right, Eric, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. I'm good.
All right,
I'm good
brilliant.
now,
All right. We have Nick Blue, who's just jumped in. Firstly, I want to welcome him to the stream and also ask him, before you ask Rob your question, give us a little bit of an insight of the events that took place today and how did it pan out?
Yeah, big up Mo, big up to everyone. Yeah, it was a very, very emotional day. It was a great day for me personally to meet Ron Harris, Charlie Cook, Pat Nevin, Ron Harris, and Tommy Baldwin. I met everyone and spoke to them for quite a lot. They were so good, so good to listen. This is what true legends are. And, Rob, you've been talking, I agree with everything, you're saying the facts, yeah? And I'm also a member of the Supporters Trust. And, like you say, personally, I can't see us moving from Stamford Bridge. And the Chelsea name, it won't in my lifetime, it will never be changed. Yeah. Even when I'm gone, it won't be changed.
Yeah, I agree.
You agreed, don't you? We can't have that, and that won't happen. I keep saying it. Anyway, let me go on about today. It was something special. Everyone met outside. I sent a lot of things on Twitter because I didn't know how to send you personally, Mo. I sent a lot of videos and stuff. And it was, a big gathering before everyone went into the shed. Everyone, you met the players, ex-players, Marina, Cech, everyone, And the most enjoyable part was when the band played Blues the Colour and Petr Cech and I could see Marina and Cech singing it with us. That was beautiful. I will never forget that in my life, what went on today. And considering they didn't let us sell more tickets, not sell because they were free, they even stopped us, stopped fans from coming. But luckily, thousands of us had tickets before, and we made the noise for Peter Benetti and for Chelsea Football Club because it was a memorial, but everyone's mind was on the club and the new owner. It was really, really. I can't describe it. It was so emotional.
Yeah, it's emotional. It's emotional. Can you tell me about did anything happen after the game? After the event? And what was the atmosphere like? What was the the situation there?
Like I said, I tweeted, for anyone wanting to come after the memorial, I'll be there waiting. So I was. There was a few of us, but not that many. Not even in the hundreds. It was only about 10, 20 people wait. So in the end, we decided to go home because we know we can't do anything really. Only if, say a few thousand turned up, we could sing Chelsea and that. That's all, just show our colours. And I wanted to see Roman's name, showing my respect. But, no one else turned up, so I was there 3 hours after the game waiting. I left. I went home. I got home 8 o'clock tonight, just in time for your stream. So
thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
I wanted to go. I like coming on.
Yeah.
And
Nick.
Yeah. So
Nick,
we don't need
big
to
up.
protest. I'm gonna
Big up to you. Big up to you and big up to everyone who attended today. Big up to you and big up to everyone who attended today.
Yes,
and for for celebrating this great anniversary, great memorial. So big up to everyone. Nick, I think you know Rob, and you've heard him talking and explaining to us in a lot of detail a lot of the things that we've been discussing and thinking about. So give us your questions. Give Rob your questions. Let me hear what you want to ask him about.
Yeah, Rob. I want your opinion is about the future for Stamford Bridge. I know you've answered everything else, which we know. The new one we probably will know next week. Even Pat Nevin today was telling me, don't worry. He was telling us, don't worry, everything's been dealt with. We don't have to worry about that. But what's your honest opinion? Do you think we should stay at Stamford Bridge and rebuild it like Robert was?
It's the first thing I want to also echo what was previously said. It was great to see so many fans out today celebrating the life of a true, not only Blues legend, but also a footballing legend that, transcended the world of sport. One of the players, who won the World Cup in 1966.
Yes.
A true icon. And see some of those names you mentioned there, Cook, Harris, Tommy Baldwin, true Chelsea icons that are from an era that should definitely not be forgotten. One of the main things that annoyed me in the last couple of weeks is the amount of people that have just said that Chelsea Football Club's history is just the last, 20 years. It winds me up.
Rob, can I just interrupt? You know how much it gets me when they say that? I feel it gets me in my heart when people, when they start saying we ain't got no history. Like West Ham starts saying, it really gets me mad. Yeah. Because we have a big history, 117 years of history. Yeah, exactly. It really gets, sorry to interrupt. Carry on. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Regarding the Stamford Bridge point, it's a really difficult one because it's one that you have to deal with from a logical point of view and an emotional point of view.
Yeah.
From an emotional point of view, the current Stamford Bridge, to me, holds so many memories. It'll be the place where, we ended our title drought and we then went, and did it back to back. It'll be the place where, we sealed the double in 2010. It's the place where I personally saw my greatest ever live footballing comeback, Chelsea-Napoli in 2012, on the road to, winning it. It's the place where we saw sort of Jose Mourinho return and, win the title again. It's such a, special stadium, and I think it has a unique atmosphere in the top flight in that it is one of the older style stadiums. It is such, compact. When it is full and firing, it makes a hell of a noise in there, and there's seldom few better atmospheres. And what I really don't want to happen is any sort of redevelopment loses that atmosphere. Having said that, I think there is a way you can build on Stamford Bridge and you can rebuild it in a way where it maintains the atmosphere while also increasing the amount of seating that's available. I think you can work more in, the corners. You can look to expand. I really want to see more safe standing areas introduced because I think so far the trial for that has been very successful. I think we've learned from the, horrendous incidents and, horrendous accidents of the past. And we should, while we make sure, to ensure they are never repeated again, the atmosphere in, safe standing, having been to Germany and been to matches, is often a lot better. So I would really like to see, a new owner put forward a credible plan that involves developing, building on the bridge. I think it would be very easy to, persuade the government to allow us to play at Twickenham or potentially at Wembley for a couple of years. I can't see them having objections. And I think, that's the one step we really need to take that final, leap into truly being the Club of London. Because now we have the players. And I know Arsenal fans like to, bang on and say they've got all the history. There are players now that are reaching the age of 18 that have never seen Arsenal Football Club win the league. There are players now that, are aged 21, 22 that have grown up in an era that's been, there's been Manchester United, there's been Manchester City, there's been Liverpool periods, but throughout all of that, Chelsea have won trophies. And I think you're going to increasingly start to see that coming to the fore now with younger players. They're going to talk about growing up watching Chelsea, seeing Chelsea. And we saw it with Kai Havertz. One of Kai Havertz's big things was the fact he was inspired by watching Michael Ballack as a kid, who obviously had a great time at Chelsea and makes it very clear he loved being there. I've seen young Dutch players say that, they remember seeing Ian Robben at Chelsea and know how well Robben speaks about the club. So I think increasingly that will become a USP for the club, actually. And it will be a selling point to encourage players to go, because we're no longer just some upstarts who won a couple of trophies. For 20 years now, we've been an elite sporting institution.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick. I'm going to ask one question, and I'll let you guys all come in and ask your questions. This is been bugging me because it's not clear in how we're going to be dealing with this, and it's the loan, the £1.5 billion loan, and the impact it's going to have on FFP. Because I'm hearing that it's gonna cause us problems, and it might not be such a good thing. So can you tell us about this, Rob? Can you explain it to us? Just break it down for us.
FFP. A lot of people asked about FFP in the last couple of days. So, firstly, I'll define what FFP actually states, because I've wrote it numerous times in the last couple of days. I've got to a point now where the definition is almost ingrained in my head, and I've become increasingly tired of people abusing the phrases of FFP. FFP, very simply, is a mechanism that's designed to try and prevent people having ridiculous financial losses. The cornerstone of FFP is that it requires the break-even requirement, which is that every team in UEFA competition needs to keep losses below 5 million over 3-year periods. The majority of Chelsea's debt, as people like to use the phrasing on it, relates to stadium costs and relates to the rebuilding of Cobham and the rebuilding of Stamford Bridge. All of that is exempt from financial fair play. So immediately, if any bidder came in and wanted to spend, say, 2 million, 3 million on it, they would be completely fine. Secondly, you have to then deduct all of the costs that predate financial fair play. So that's any transfer business from 2003 to 2014 when FFP was introduced. It was first created in 2012, but it only came into effect from the 2014 season, so anything financially before that is written off. From that period onwards, Chelsea have complied every single year with FFP. So FFP is not an issue. Regarding the actual loan, as it's been, phrased, the loan is not really a problem, as per se, because the loan is a private deal between two different parties. It's a private deal between Roman Abramovich and Fordstown Capital and Chelsea Football Club. There is no legal entity in the world that can force someone to maintain a debt. It is the debtor's responsibility and the creditor's responsibility to maintain the debt. If the creditor says that, actually, I want to write off this debt and I want to, you don't have to pay it back, then you'd have to pay it back. It's a bit like with your friends. If you lent your friend £20, you said to your friend, you don't have to pay that back, I've just given you £20, no one would kick up a fuss about it. And if someone else did, it wouldn't be a problem. This is effectively what's happened on a grand scale with Chelsea. People don't like it because they see it as, Chelsea falling on their feet. A lot of people expected Chelsea, for some reason, to be punished during this. And, I saw all sorts of things. Chelsea are going into administration. I saw one particular, financial guru, as he claimed himself on social media, one person who runs an FFP site, saying that, no one will bid for Chelsea with £1.5 million debt. So for that reason, I expect them to go into administration. It was complete and utter tosh. Even at the time of that happening, there was, bids on the table. There were bids on offer. So that was never going to be a problem. Regarding it being written off, again, Chelsea very easily, if they don't want to write it off, could just say it's been converted into equity before the sale. And at the moment, the other question that would also raise is that if Chelsea were asked to maintain the debt and pay back the debt, they would have to pay it to Fordstown Capital and Roman Abramovich. Roman Abramovich is currently sanctioned and can't receive payments, and according to any sanctioned individual law, any debts to sanctioned individuals after a period of time must be written off anyway. So even if it went into an account and sat there in an account, it would be likely written off anyway. So this is mainly just people complaining. Someone asked what my Twitter link is. It's at RJP Journalism. Please do give me a follow on there. I'm occasionally funny.
I will share it with everyone in due course. I will also give it to you, Bobby, via the group that we have set up. Rob, Julius, generous donation. So if you can address this question while I get your Twitter into the chat.
Yeah, so firstly, I want to say, Julius, hope you're doing well. Again, we haven't spoken for a little while, but always good to hear from you. In regards to a risk of losing the competitive edge and ability to compete in transfers if we develop and spend money, yes and no. It depends on who is financing it, on how they finance it. What I will say is that I get the feeling that Chelsea are not going to be moving stadium immediately because it's going to take planning permission and time. B, I think Chelsea have also got quite a young squad at this moment in time, and with the young squad that they actually have, there's less need to do immediate surgery on it. It's more of a case of picking out the right players and buying the right players. Someone asked if you see us becoming like Arsenal. Well, no, I don't see us going 10 years without a trophy, so no. The new owners, I think, will ensure we are strong. I think that it's going to be pretty clear that Roman Abramovich is going to want to sell to someone who builds on his legacy, doesn't destroy it. And I think the fact that, the sale criteria has been set out as it is, I think that's what will continue happening. I also think there will be pressure from the fans if it does change, because Chelsea are used to winning. This is not like when Tottenham, for example, have issues because they weren't used to winning. When teams that are used to winning get taken over, there's a demand to do well. And that's where Barcelona had issues when, they've fallen in issues in the last couple of years and why they had to commit a lot to rebuilding because they're used to winning. And then when you stop winning, suddenly people, start making more noises.
Lads, do us a favour and smash that like button. We've had over 200 people watching the stream at any one point, and we've not hit more than 108 likes. So let's get the likes up. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. I've also put Rob's Twitter link in the chat, so click on that and give him a follow. Some great updates on there. I want to give the panelists a chance to ask any questions. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Or are you guys...
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say a few things regarding
go ahead.
The situation at Chelsea.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be like Arsenal in the sense that, we will be given false hope that this brand new stadium will, take us back to the glory days or something like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't really believe that. I don't think, I think Arsenal are not progressing because of the fact that the owners are just not ambitious to do that. Yeah. I don't think it has anything to do with the stadium. So, but for Chelsea, I think it's very important that whether it's at the same location or whether it's a different location, I think Chelsea really needs to, especially the patroners and the fans, and I'm pretty sure they're aware, we need to have that kind of competitive edge. We need to be able to compete with these clubs that, have, 60,000 seater stadiums, and things like this. It really helps. The numbers are, I'm not sure Chelsea are fully sustainable. I'm pretty sure Roman has had to, keep putting money into the club to help us. I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's fully correct.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay. I mean, I would love you to go into more, more detail, but obviously, we're not like United, for example. I know that they are the best example of that. The club pretty much spends their own money. The Glazers don't put their money into the club. The money that's spent is the money generated by the club. So that's probably what we're trying to get towards.
Yeah. No, I mean, firstly, I think it's worth noting that a new stadium potentially brings new commercial revenue, new commercial opportunities to the club. Potentially some deal on naming rights. Again, that would require EPO agreement. But if, I think it was financially right, it wouldn't be something they would necessarily completely veto. I think it would be a tough sell, but it needs to be exactly the right sort of thing. Thank you very much for following me on Twitter. Like I said, I am occasionally funny. When it comes to sort of the Roman putting money in, Chelsea have actually been quite sustainable over the last couple of years. They sustained that every single club did. So that's not really such of an issue. I will sort of say that increasingly Chelsea's model, and again, someone says a new stadium equals more income. Increasingly, Chelsea's model is looking to move towards being more sustainable in the sense that they have a very good academy at Cobham, which even if not every player makes it through, because not every player is going to make it into the sort of senior starting lineup and into, the senior side, there are a number of players that will be sold on for, significant sums, significant amounts, anywhere ranging from, several million with significant sell-on clauses to, say, 20, 30, 40 million pound players. And as long as those crops keep coming through, of which there's no sign they're going to end in the short term, someone says we've only been in the black 1 year. It's an interesting sort of one in terms of being in the red and the black, because we are now sustainable in the current form. However, it requires, keeping things to be spent appropriately and, less of a spending on, say, transfers or cutting back on transfers. So the new owners that come in, I think, need to first and foremost fund a couple of years of development. Then they need to fund for the longer term plan. And we need to work on the basis that the infrastructure in place will take us through that time. And then after that, we can reap the benefits. And I see no reason why that can't happen.
I was just supposed to be back on the Blue Lounge. I had a phone call. So
Welcome, Chris. Finally.
Yeah.
Traffic must have been bad from Glasgow, eh, mate? Welcome, Chris. Welcome.
I had a phone call, but I'm back now. No, I don't have a question.
Welcome.
I just want to talk, obviously, the deadline is obviously passed now. Obviously, there'll probably be a few cheeky little bids coming in now, but, I think the deadline's there. Look, I've said it time and time again in terms of ownership. Mo, you know who I want as the next owners, and it's not American ownership. I keep repeating myself. I keep repeating it time and time again. I've seen enough evidence at other clubs to suggest it just doesn't work. It's nothing against Americans. People seem to think if you say no to American ownership, you're suddenly targeting Americans. No, I'm just targeting the way that they run businesses, and it's just not good enough, in my opinion. I want what's best for Chelsea Football Club, and in my opinion, if you have American ownership, you can kiss goodbye to Chelsea Football Club, in my opinion. So, and people can say, I keep repeating myself as well in terms of people say, but this is just a one-off. Well, no, I'm not willing to take that risk. Sorry, not doing it. I want the Saudis, simple as that. So, it'll be interesting to see who gets accepted, what it is. My guess would be that Todd fella, the Saudis, and probably one other unknown bidder. But yeah, I just want what's best for Chelsea Football Club. I want the next owner to have ambition. I want the next owner to have the winning mentality and to continue the fantastic job that the best owner of all time, Roman Abramovic, done for Chelsea Football Club. I want ambition. I don't want someone to come in and rinse the club dry. I want ambition. That's it. The key word is ambition. So whoever the next owner is, they're not going to be listening. But even if they are, let's just say they are listening. Get that winning mentality going. Yeah, keep going. Keep it going. Get ambition there. Come on.
Fair comment. I want to actually take your comment and twist it into a question for Rob. Rob, we here in the UK have had a bad experience with American owners. We've seen, that's just the understatement of the century. But especially with what they've tried to do in English football and in European football, i.e., Super Cup and Super League and whatnot. Do you think that this will play a role in the thinking or in the decision making for Chelsea Football Club in respect to people coming in really for profit, for commercial aspects rather than sport and football and grassroots development aspects? I mean, going on to what Chris said in regards to Roman Abramovich, politics aside, he has done an amazing job at Chelsea in respect to all of the different avenues that he addressed. The academy, the women's team, the facilities, and also the culture that he has implemented at Chelsea. So we can't thank him enough for that, but we also want to continue that moving forward. Now, Chris and many fans believe that an American consortium may jeopardize what Roman has built over the years. What's your take on this?
So, firstly, I want to say I'm not against, there are good owners and bad owners from everywhere. There are good English owners, there are bad English owners, there are good American owners, there are bad American owners. In terms of American owners that are good at, whether Liverpool fans like to hear it, FSG have built a very good model at their club. They've employed the right people, and they've actually built a lot of long-term stability at the club and massively enhancing the American market. I know they're not every fan's cup of tea. The American owners at Aston Villa have taken them from practically financial ruin to being incredibly well managed and sort of soluble as a club and soluble from a financial perspective. Again, British owners, we've seen people like Mike Ashley who have no interest in other than just promoting their business. So I'm not going to go in and make any sort of xenophobic comments on who should or shouldn't be allowed to run a football club. I very much believe on the basis that if you are the right person, whether you are man, woman, old, young, as long as you have the football club's interest at heart and you're not in it for the profit, you are acceptable as an owner. That said, I do think that Chelsea will factor in a little bit into their thoughts of that they will know that they're in a bit of a, crossroads. They will know that there is a sort of big decision that needs to be made over the stadium. There are, a very proud history in recent weeks of trading. I would say that it is worth, knowing that it's worth. I think knowing. Yeah, that's fine. It's worth knowing that I think the right bidders will be put forward, and I think all the bidders that get put forward, I think are people that will be the right owners. I can't see anything from Nizar.
Yeah, I can't see it as well. Julius, if you have the link, send it to me because I can't see it.
Did you get done by a fake account? There's been a few of those going around, and I'd imagine by now I'd have seen that in one of my group chats. But I
haven't seen it.
I'd be very surprised if a bid got rejected that
so quickly.
Unless it was something that literally wasn't financially credible in any way. Like, for example, if Conor McGregor put all one of his, £1.5 billion bid that he mentioned. I don't know if I think. Don't worry, we've all been there. But I wouldn't expect any news of this tonight in terms of what has or hasn't progressed, because it just won't happen that quickly. As soon as if anyone does say, XYZ for sure has progressed or XYZ for sure is dead, you can probably discount it because no one's going to know at this moment in time. I don't know. Rain potentially will have to release a list of bidders that they've taken forward. I don't know sort of what competition law states in the US. Someone says the UK won't stop until we're another Aston Villa. I don't think we'll get that. To be honest, I think people have to remember here the government sanctioned. Although I know they are frustrating, they will all go when a new owner comes in, and they will all immediately go. So there won't be anything to worry about. Hopefully, Chelsea Football Club will stop being a political point-scoring exercise, which it's become in the last couple of weeks. But I will say I trust Rain Group because they're acting on the criteria set by Roman Abramovich, which I think will want to build on from what the club has. I trust them to pick the right owners.
Over the years, actually from 2003 onwards, really, Chelsea have been the envy of the league, and a lot of clubs, a lot of fans believe that we've been targeted, we've been mistreated because of this investment. Do you think we're going to see a change once the club is sold, or do you think it will continue to happen? If you believe that it does happen.
Do you mind just clarifying what exactly you mean in terms of? Do you mean transfer investment or?
No. In terms that we've bought our glory. We've been blessed to have such a heavy investor, and thus we don't deserve luck. We don't deserve success. We don't deserve any of that kind of stuff.
People will be frustrated whatever happens. Again, as was said by Miguel Delaney's piece today with Premier League executives. Premier League executives, if they had their way, would like to see Chelsea taken over by a poor owner who won't invest money and doesn't care about the football club. It is just rank jealousy, in all honesty. And I will say, one thing that's become really disappointing in the last couple of weeks to me is seeing people, journalists, true colours on the. It's not about Ukraine. It's about, just trying to have a pop at Chelsea Football Club. And the football club has a proud history before Roman Abramovich. Will have a proud history after Roman Abramovich. It shouldn't just be, used as some sort of engine to have, hatred against. And I do think, people's cards will have been marked. I will say that there are journalists who are exempt from this rule. I think, Matt Law, I think, has done a tremendous job in the last couple of weeks being fair and impartial in his reporting on Chelsea. He's stuck to the facts. I think Nizar has done the same. I think Martin Samuel has done the same. Ben Rumsby has done the same. There are a small number of them, but they will be remembered. And conversely, on the other side, there are now journalists that whenever they say anything about Chelsea Football Club, I'm just going to look at it and say, all you want to do is see the club fail. So I've got absolutely no time for what you have to say. And I won't name those journalists because, again, A, I don't want to be caught in a libel case, and B, I don't think it's worth our time. But cards have been marked. And, again, I'd like to, at this point also say that my thoughts are still with Ukraine. I have friends who are in Ukraine or have been in Ukraine. Thankfully, most of them are now out now. It is a horrendous, desperate situation. It transcends the world of sport. It is bigger than the world of sport. And it should not be used as some sort of point-scoring exercise because that's quite frankly insulting to the people being affected by it. That is quite frankly insulting that you're using the horrors of war to have a pop at a football club you don't like.
Well said.
Yeah, spawn.
Can I just add to this that, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Rob. I'm glad you're saying it, and you're just echoing the sentiments of all sane Chelsea fans that, there has been some spite mixed in with all this. I think I'd like to add one thing about the financing. Mm-hmm. I think we're overlooking that the Rain Group are, I believe, a bank. And they're not actually doing this for charity. So probably they have a vested interest in the price being as high as possible for the purpose of their commission.
Potentially, although, again, there's some debate as to actually what commission they will get through the sale. Again, it's likely to be government regulated how much they actually get. So it may be that they aren't able to just inflate it. By my understanding.
Can you imagine an American bank not having a margin for additional profit? I mean, I hear you, it's quite likely, but they usually don't operate.
I can 100% imagine it. I'm not going to pretend that people are doing this out of the goodness of their heart, that they're helping sell a football club. But I do think, the criteria has been made quite clear what it is, and it's worth noting that even though Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned, I believe, in the US, but he's not been, he will have various entities of which he could pay them through. So I suspect Rain will still be getting a healthy sum through Mr. Abramovich. Let's not forget, even through this sale of the club, Roman is not, he's hardly going to be on, the dole with the amount of money that he has and the amount of business interest and investitures that are held up. So I would imagine there would be, a level of this that is being restrained as a golden handshake for Ray.
You know what, right? I just want to touch. Hold on, Bobby. I just want to touch on this Arsenal and Spurs thing, right? Because you know what? It's getting to the point where it's like jealousy. Like we can all agree, jealousy is a very ugly trait. No one should be jealous. Just do what you can do. Yeah. Yep. Look, Arsenal, what have they done on the pitch since 2004? Right, and I'm not even going to call them the Invincibles. I'm going to call them the Invisibles because actually Chelsea beat them that year in the Champions League. So were they really invincible? No, they weren't. Right, they've got short memories, Arsenal. And as for Tottenham, we can be here all day talking about how many trophies Tottenham's won. Dusty cabinet. What it is, it's just very, very jealous. Just stop focusing on other clubs and focus on your own club because their club's a mess. Their owners, they forget, their owners are rich as well. Stan Kroenke's got 10.7 billion. He just doesn't choose to invest. So don't take it out on other people that your owner doesn't like you. Just focus on your own club and stay in your lane, essentially. Just stay in your lane and stop focusing on other successful clubs. Simple as that.
Chris, he has been investing in them though. Spent a lot of money on them.
I mean, they've not really. Yeah, but I mean, they've spent it on. That's what I'm saying. So it's like Arsenal fans are just jealous because we've got it right, transfer wise, and they've just. I mean, the owner doesn't like him anyway. Kroenke, it's clearly Kroenke's not.
You say they've been invested in, but that's just recently. I mean, what happened before that?
They did. What do you think they used to build the stadium? It wasn't peanuts.
I mean, but the stadium wasn't for the success of the club. The whole point of the stadium is to benefit Kroenke, because it's
it was to push Arsenal on to win more trophies.
That's what the Arsenal fans were told. But let's be honest, the stadium hasn't brought them closer to the title, or any major trophies.
Anyway, to be honest, I couldn't give a
exactly. Yeah.
Can I come in on that point? You just
go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. You just said Eric Blue. Yeah. Arsenal, look, when they were Highbury, they were a winning machine, but they made a big mistake. Like, we should never make a move and build a new stadium. Same with Tottenham. Same with Arsenal. It's there to see. We can
make that correlation, Nick.
Well,
you can't make that correlation. I mean,
they build it for success. They build it to get more success, and it backfired. So
but Nick, whatever owner comes in, you've just got to accept it, mate. They will want to move from Stamford Bridge.
No, I won't accept it. Never.
Well, you're going to have to. That's what the owner wants.
No, I don't have to.
Well, you do.
I would say Stamford Bridge by myself.
Well,
I mean, but Nick, you
might have to do that. You might have to say by yourself.
We're not moving, Chris. It won't happen. Like Rob, what he thinks.
No, but Nick, the question is, should it happen? Should it happen or not?
But we can't say it should or shouldn't.
No, of course you can.
Of course it should happen.
I mean, come
on. It will increase revenue from what, 70 billion to what, 200
That'd be a downfall of Chelsea Football Club, and I don't want to see that.
Why would it be? Why would it be the downfall, Nick? Why? Because of the location, the history. Is how you're talking about the sentimental value?
Yes, it means a lot.
Okay, but sentimental value.
It's only emotion.
Nick. Sentiment does not put food on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah, but look, we can rebuild the bridge. There's a lot of space. You look at the West End, behind the West End, how much space, open space. We have a lot of space to rebuild. Like
but the owner won't see it like that, mate.
But the fans were complaining that Roman wanted to make it the stadium bigger, and they were upset.
No, there wasn't complaining. Everyone was happy to rebuild. We were all glad, we were going to rebuild.
No, we all love Stamford Bridge, but is it not logically the best solution for the club's future to move to a new stadium?
No, it's not. Well, no, I don't agree. I definitely 100% don't agree. Because he would take everything out of Chelsea.
As I say, we all love the bridge.
Guys, hold on. Are you looking at what Wobb's doing? He's got his phone in his hand. He's got a big grin on his face. I'm guessing he's got some breaking news. Care to share?
I mean, I'm going to really disappoint you. I'm actually looking at my betting amounts after Cheltenham today.
Oh, okay.
It's been a productive day of punting. No, the only news I had is the news that's it's come out into the public domain in the last couple of minutes about that Nick Candy did officially submit his bid with the South Korean consortium and also with links to the American investors and European investors. Based on something I've been told off the record about that, I would say it stands a good chance of getting into the final three and possibly usurping Ricketts. Because I think, the furore around Ricketts, as I've said, they will not have ignored that as a club. And I think, the club will be considering the various sort of, anti-Semitism and anti-racism actions the club have undertaken in recent years. I think that, this will be a sort of incendiary sort of time bomb. Someone says the Invincibles is a myth. That's this whole other debate, the Invincibles. But I feel like another thing. But sorry to disappoint you. But on the bright side, I did make a significant amount of money from Cheltenham this week. So if I do see any of you at the bridge in the forthcoming, drinks are on me. So.
Well, mate, to be honest, mate, my prediction was spot on recently. So if you should have come to the prediction.
Rob, now we know we've seen you now in person. We're going to be after you, don't worry.
Nick, I don't want to spoil your evening, mate, but you have to accept the reality that it's logical that the next move may be away from Stamford Bridge for Chelsea. It's just.
I think it's an interesting one. From my perspective, I'm not against moving away from the bridge in principle, but any proposal that does it needs to be fully planned, needs to be fully funded, needs to ensure we remain competitive, and needs to be a proper state-of-the-art stadium that you can put in an appropriate, in an appropriate location that keeps us within the heart of Kensington and within the Chelsea borough. I do not want to see us moving to, sort of the other side of London.
No, Nick, right. Obviously, you want to stay at Stamford Bridge. Look, the ideal solution would be to stay at Stamford Bridge, but the best solution really is we need to move to a new stadium. Simple as that. So, Nick, do we just stay at Stamford Bridge forever? We just do upgrades and just stay at Stamford Bridge forever? Is that what we do, Nick? Or I don't know if Nick's there. Nick, you there? Hello? You're on mute.
Yeah, I don't understand why, Chris, you want to move from the bridge.
No.
I don't understand it. Why you want to move?
Because in terms of, you know what I mean, the revenue, etc. You know what I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but look, we can have a 60,000 capacity with a redevelopment.
Lads, sure. we will dedicate a stream purely to discuss the new stadium as and when the proposal and the bid is accepted, and we'll see what their plan is in respect to it. Mo, check your WhatsApp. Julius, do me a favor, send it to Twitter. I can't check WhatsApp at this point in time, so send it to me via Twitter. I'll have a look at it there.
Can I give a big shout out to Rio Ferdinand? I mean, he surprised me. As a pundit with a Man United background, he's been so fair to us. In fact, he's actually stuck up for us, where some of our ex-players didn't. I think he's been very balanced, and the respect I've got for him has increased tremendously.
Yeah. He said the right words. He's very good, considering what Carragher will say. Yeah, Rio Ferdinand's, he's a legend. I love what he had to say. Really did.
You know what? I'll be remembered what Carragher's saying, because in terms of if Liverpool gets sold, after Klopp leaves or whatever, if FSG decide to move on, let's remember, Carragher needs to remember what he's been saying during this time, because if he starts saying, Saudi could come in for Liverpool, remember what you said in the past, mate. Remember.
Yeah, I will say that this last week has proven which pundits are absolute hypocrites and which ones, are unable to move away.
Genuine. Yeah.
It was particularly ridiculous on Monday when Gary Neville, who before has made, his dislike of Chelsea Football Club very clear in the past, was the man sticking up for Chelsea Football Club. That's when you end up in a ridiculous debate. Carragher's comments, so many of them were absolutely, just out of order, especially regarding the academy.
They were discussing his words. For someone who spat at a little girl, it shouldn't be allowed to. I don't know how they put him back there.
Agreed.
But his words were disgusting, really.
Yeah, agreed.
Pat Neville said it today. He said the same.
Yeah. Again, Pat obviously is someone who has a real affinity with the academy and has, commentated on numerous academy games. He is a genuine, a true Chelsea legend at all levels, with the women as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if, to be honest, some of them looked at legal action after what Carragher said. Because, for example, Reece James' father, Nigel, was not paid by the club in order for the club to recruit Reece James. The same with Tony Mount was not paid by the club to work as a scout in order to recruit Mason Mount. And Liverpool themselves, were caught guilty of doing this in 2017. I'm not going to pretend that Chelsea Football Club don't do this to an extent. Every club does. Why do you think Jadon Sancho went from Watford with a clear first team, pathway to going to Manchester City? Why do you think Andreas Christensen went from Brøndby to Chelsea? Why do you think Raheem Sterling went from QPR to Liverpool? It is not, there's a lot of murky stuff that goes on behind the scenes. What annoys me is that it was made out that only Chelsea were sort of the ones that did it. Someone said the irony is Carragher's issue is Carragher has never really got over the fact that Chelsea, over the last 20 years have been more successful, and they've had a period of success similar to Liverpool's 80s. And he's never really got over that, of the fact that Chelsea's last 20 years have been akin to what Liverpool had in the 80s and 90s.
And because his best mate wanted to join Chelsea as well, Steven Gerrard. But we all
exactly that. Again, I actually have respect for Gerrard in the fact that Gerrard, before subsequently, has not held the fact that he did consider it, and he was really quite swayed by the idea of joining Chelsea, and he only sort of came to his senses at the end. I can believe he came to his senses. To be honest, I think if he joined Chelsea, I think Frank Lampard wouldn't have stayed as long as he did, and I think, they wouldn't have worked well together. But I can appreciate the fact Gerrard did admit that he was swayed by it and swayed by the finances. Players that pretend to me, the ones that annoy me, are the ones that say finances never have a thought in what I do in my deals or what I do in my career. Because ultimately, footballers' salaries are so obscene these days that there's always going to be some form of financial thinking to it. And unless you're someone like, Joaquin, who's playing at Real Betis at the age of 40 because, he genuinely loves the game, he loves the club, and he's, been in football for perhaps eons now, it all is just hollow words.
Yeah. Hold on, guys. I want to bring in Julius. Julius, welcome to the panel. I hope you're doing good.
Thanks, my man. I missed you all. It's been a while.
It has been a while. How you feeling? You better?
Yeah. Just the cough is not leaving me alone.
It'll go, man. Are you taking them garlics, man, like I told you?
Yes.
All right, listen, Julius, you know Rob, so I'm not going to introduce you guys. You guys know each other better than I do. So if you have anything you want to address to Rob, take it away, brother.
Yeah, I might have missed the first bit of the stream, so I wasn't sure if you guys... I wanted to see what Rob thinks about who, in his opinion, he thinks of the potential bidders that we know about would be the best bet from what he knows.
We're gonna recap. Because Rob already addressed it, but we'll recap just for you if Rob is good with that. Rob, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm just reading the news that has just come out about Nick Candy's bid, about the fact it's over $2 billion, partnership with Hana Finance, CP Sport Group, and investors from Silicon Valley. More interestingly, it involves a promise for Chelsea fans to acquire a share of economic and voting rights, and also forgives the outstanding balance of the loan from the club to the CPO. So Stamford Bridge would be secured for, and it would grant the fans a golden share. Which is quite significant stuff. For those that aren't aware what a golden share is, because it's been referenced an awful lot, a golden share relates to the ability to have the final say and, if necessary, veto certain decisions at all levels of this club. In reality, it wouldn't really be used for things like transfers unless there was, a particular transfer someone objected to. For example, if Chelsea signed someone that had, previously been involved, let's just say, an allegation of sexual assault, for instance, for the most sordid example, a golden share could veto that. More likely, they would be used to veto things like involvement in the Super League or, agreeing to be involved in X, Y, Z, or signing a commercial deal with, say, an unscrupulous commercial partner, whether it was, say, like a tobacco company, etc. It won't be used, despite what fans seem to think, it won't be used in order to buy Declan Rice. It won't be used to, rehire Frank Lampard as a manager. I've seen all sorts of nonsense in the last couple of days. Golden shares are very specific in what they're used for, and they are designed as sort of the ultimate piece of safeguarding and security. I will say Nick Candy coming out of that in his bid, that would be quite a significant thing, because it will make the government's fan-led review is going to call for golden shares in Premier League clubs. I'm going to call for says in it, and that suddenly, will, I think, maybe give them the edge over, say, a Ricketts bid. In terms of the ones I think that are probably most credible, as I've already sort of said, again, I think Saudi Media Group, their proposal is very thorough, it's very thought out, they've clearly got the financial backing behind it. The sticking point is whether you legally can prove that there's no government entity involved in it. Again, that's a matter for, the legal courts to decide and for the club to decide. Regarding the Bowley Weiss Goldstein bid, I think that covers all bases that the club would want to see covered. It covers the key aspects that it is financially, sound. It has people that have been involved in renovation and particularly, large-scale renovation and also philanthropy. So that covers all aspects of it. So I think that's probably one. The Ricketts bid is financially credible, so I think that's probably one that also might get taken forward. I've been told, quite interestingly, that the shortlist might be 4 parties instead of 3, and then whittled down to 2 that will be taken forward to the final stage, to i.e. the stage of licensing. That may just be because they've had more bidders than expected that are credible bidders. Again, there were 27 as of 5 o'clock. Since then, there has clearly been, at least 3-4 bids that we know about. There will have been other bids we don't know about. In terms of my personal opinion on an ethical level, I don't think that's necessary for me to share at the moment until it comes out more as to who are the final 3. I think at that point I'm willing to give my opinion from an ethical POV. From a club POV, it needs to be someone that protects all aspects of the club and protects it at every single level to remain an elite sporting institution for the men, the women, and for the academy.
Yeah, I've just seen here, actually. It just came out about just now. It says here, Nick Candy's Chelsea proposal promises a new world-class stadium that will reimagine the spectator experience, transform the revenue profile of the club, and set a new benchmark in stadium design whilst creating a major new landmark for London. So
I just think Nick's bid is too complicated. There seems too many people involved, and when money is coming from
too big a consortium, right?
Yeah, when money's coming from too many different directions.
There's so many different parties.
It's complicated. It sounds great, but in actual execution,
is it too good? Is it too good to be true?
Can I just go into some more details I've now read on the Candy proposal that's been
Please, yeah.
before. So, provide an opportunity for fans to acquire a share of the economic and voting rights in the club, to be announced in more detail. Forgive the outstanding balance on the loan to Stamford Bridge is secured by and for Chelsea supporters. Create a golden share to Chelsea supporters, key items of club heritage. Create an advisory board of fan representatives to engage in regular constructive dialogue on supporters, such as issues of fair ticketing, stadium development, and strategic projects. Guarantee that Chelsea will not enter any existing sporting structures without the engagement of key stakeholders, including fans at the forefront, and then also the world-class stadium. It also promises significant investment in CFCW in the academy to remain as elite sporting structures. I will say increasingly that bid looks like the sort of thing that I think fans would get behind. It looks like something that I think a lot of fans will be interested in. And also other Premier League fans, I think, will be interested in watching that one closely, because if Chelsea were to become the first side to get a golden share, it would be very, very ironic that the side that have been blamed so much for ownership issues in football and for unrealistic ownership would be the first Premier League side to be fan-owned or have some element of fan control in there.
I hear what you're saying, but I think fans will also want to see the operational viability.
I agree. Yes,
this is promises.
Yeah, this is why again a lot of these bids I always take every bid with a pinch of salt, because again words are very easy and words are cheap. Actions are not, and that's always what I maintain, and that's what I will maintain all the way through. Someone says being a property developer from UK Tory donor looking less likely, non-UK/US bidder is likely. Again, quite possibly. I wouldn't discount, Saudi media groups. I think they've put forward a credible proposal, but I do think that, it is one of those that because of the questions about where the funding comes from, I think that will be used by a reasoning for Rain to pull it back, even if it's not, warranted concerns or valid concerns. Because ultimately, if the process takes too long, then Chelsea, could have issues with their operations. And that's not me saying, that sort of anything from SMG is government run or has any government sort of, involvement or doesn't have any government involvement. It's just me saying what I think, something that could be.
Yeah, I didn't even hear what you said there because your mic was covered, Rob. Your mic was covered.
Oh dear. let me try and sort that out again. All I was saying there was in terms of like Saudi media group. I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to discourage any bids here. The only one I really want to discourage is the Ricketts bid because I don't like anyone who's openly Islamophobic and openly sexist has absolutely no place at my football club at any level of the infrastructure. Regarding the Saudi media group, I think the only sticking point with it, as I've said before, could be the fact that there could be uncertainty where the funding comes from. It can be hard to do the fit and proper persons test because you've got to follow the money trail, which can be more difficult in Saudi Arabia. Someone says, don't think it's funny that most bidders are Chelsea fans. I don't think it's funny that most people are busy that it's Chelsea fans. Someone says if the Saudis can match Candy's social package and combine it with financial clout, they'll win. Potentially, although at this moment in time, as we know, all the bids are in, I suspect it will be unlikely they'll be allowed to change bids. I think that the bid that's in will be taken as a final bid. There may be slight options to adjust one or two things if there's things you want more clarity on, or they want more clarity on. But I think it became pretty clear that with the number of bidders there's not a process to fine tune and reset a bid. It's quite easy to see that there is no shortage of suitors for Chelsea Football Club here.
Can you enlighten me about this whole issue with the Ricketts family? I won't pretend to know that I know, to say that I know what it's about. However, I hope, people don't turn around and say, oh, he was friends with Donald Trump. I don't think that's good enough.
No.
I think
Can I post something? Can I post something in the chat that will result that's?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Put it in a private chat, then I'll share it with with everyone on the screen.
That reading through that story there is enough for me not to want them. Just through that single story. Again, there's numerous other examples of this. Shamefully, it's not the only time he's been accused of the issues, but there are numerous examples of this.
Yeah, he's got a track record. Yeah.
Yeah, that to me is enough to say, I absolutely do not want you anywhere near the football club.
Okay, I mean, if he's been directly involved in things like that, then of course. But when I hear people say, "Oh, he was Trump's mate," I'm thinking, nah.
I mean, looking at that headline there, the fact that just those final 6 words there, final 5 words there, are enough for me, to immediately say we do not want you at the football club.
Yeah, you can't be saying stuff like that. That's wrong.
Completely. Considering that, some of our best players at this moment in time are sort of our
Muslims are naturally my enemy. What, he said this?
Yeah, he emailed it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is exactly why. Again, I'm not going to say that I believe in witch hunting people. I don't think this is witch hunting. It's clearly in the public domain that he said this, and quite frankly, this being uncovered is, I think, probably a good thing because it will ensure that we don't end up with the media and coverings later at a later date.
That's exactly. You know what?
We don't need that again.
Yeah.
One second, guys. I am gonna put that link in the chat. So anybody who wants to go ahead and read the article, it's available for you by clicking on the link in the chat. Go ahead, Chris.
What I was going to say was, let's just say we didn't do our research on the Ricketts family, right? Like that Joe Ricketts, for me, I think is a scumbag because you can't be saying stuff like that. That's clear as day. You cannot be saying stuff like that. And let's just say he became owner. We didn't do any research on him. We just thought, all right, he's an American. He's came from, is it the Chicago Cubs he owns, I think? Baseball. I'm not sure. I don't pay attention to any NFL
correct,
stuff like that. But just imagine that he became the owner, and a week later, that comes out in the media, and that's our owner. Nah, look, it just can't happen. It just can't happen. He's got to stay so far away.
I'm gonna assume this. and I think Rob can clarify. But there must be a committee within the Rain Group or those who are handling the transaction that will do some sort of background check. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, 100%. There will 100% be that, and I think as I said earlier, I think any bid that's taken to the government to request a government license, again, the government will then have to put their name to that sale and say, we approve this. It won't look very good on them if they're approving a sale to someone who's been openly Islamophobic and is very right wing. Especially with the statement on the state of the world at this moment in time.
I think you're 150% correct. I just wonder, for
No.
somebody
It's 151% correct.
51%. Then I'll give you the
152% correct.
I just wonder, somebody of such high profile, didn't he offer any kind of explanation or retraction to that sort of statement, or is it so blatant that it's just beyond reproach?
In the article, I think it says he did apologise for it at a later date. But again, there's multiple cases of this, which is why I'm led to believe it's an endemic thing. I do believe in the fact that there are people that are prejudiced in this world, and I do believe people can change their prejudices. I'm not going to pretend that they, can't do that. But at the same time, when you then have a track record of doing it, and you also have, again, try not to get too political, but you have links to Donald Trump, who I think has been one of the most divisive candidates, politely, in sort of, world political history in recent years. I just don't think that can be considered credible whatsoever for running a football club. And I do not want Chelsea Football Club to become...
It's clear how that Joe Ricketts feels. It's clear. Like, it's not, as you say, it's not a one-off.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
in my opinion, apology is not good enough either. Show that you've made a mistake if you clearly think you've made a mistake. But it's clear he's not. That's how he feels. And to me, as I said, he's a scumbag. He can't be saying stuff like that. That is wrong beyond any level, honestly. So, I just can't believe that anyone would say something like that, to be fair. But that's the way some people are. So...
Yeah, I want to make it very clear that what I echoed is that someone says Roman has expansion. I'm not going to pretend that Roman has not done bad things outside of football. We shouldn't pretend that. But I do think for this next owner, we need to try and avoid controversy where possible, because I think we've given the media over the last 2 weeks enough material for them to rip Chelsea Football Club to bits till the end of time. We don't need a new owner coming in and Thomas Tuchel be asking those sort of questions in every single press conference, because it's going to then become a distraction and eventually he's going to get bored of it. Again, the thing at PSG he got wound up by was not the players. It was due to, interference in the background and questions in the background. We do not need that to become a running plot at Chelsea either.
Do you not
think that's what
it's,
Tuchel said to PSG. He didn't feel like a manager. He felt like a father figure, having to look after all these players.
Do you not think it's equally a heinous crime to have somebody that's associated with Spurs Football Club coming anywhere near us?
Yeah,
I would say that
it's quite unforgivable.
Well, I would say this, however, one of Chelsea's biggest legends is also a legend at Tottenham Hotspur. In the late great Jimmy Greaves. We've already seen
that was a mistake on Greaves' part, though.
We've already seen plenty of people who have had, involvements on both sides of the divide. Mourinho, William Gallas, Carlo Cudicini, and the last person that was going to have an involvement with Spurs and decided to jump ship at Chelsea didn't do too badly for himself in Willian Borges. So ultimately, what I'm more interested in with the fact with Goldstein, he is a man from North London who supports his local club in North London. He picked his local club, and at the time he picked a local club, and when you actually look at when he was born, he came after Spurs' big successes when Arsenal were actually back up on the rise. So he didn't pick just the biggest side at the time.
Now, one player I will never forgive, though, Rob, Gus Poyet. Playing for Chelsea, then going to Spurs and kissing the badge. Gus Poyet. That's why I didn't mention Gus Poyet in the list. Gus Poyet to me is he's just.
And Jose Mourinho had to see a therapist after he'd been to Spurs anyway. So
I think Conte might need a new hair transplant after he's done with this as well.
I think Conte will be ringing up Jose and asking for his therapist number after spending any amount of time with Daniel Levy's print, or any amount of time trying to watch Emerson Royale try and cross a ball for that matter. But in terms of to be honest, I'm with Goldstein. The fact he's a Spurs fan, I'm perhaps a little bit. I don't know what the right word for this is, but who you support isn't necessarily it impacts your professional ability. He's not going to come into Chelsea with his own investment and try and tank the club. This is not going to happen. It's not going to be some sort of grand scheme. Bowley isn't going to let that happen because they've worked together before on things. And from what I understand, Bowley likes to see, likes to win things. I think his exact quote on it was, why are you asking me the value of a franchise? The value of the franchise is what you win with the franchise. And he spent £123 million on 2 pitches, which I'm told is apparently a big. Again, I know absolutely nothing about baseball other than go Red Sox. But I sort of am told that that's sort of a big thing. I was more interested in finding out that he took over a women's basketball team that were near the bottom of the second division of the WNBA, revamped the structure of it, invested wisely in it, and then 2 years later they won the thing.
Fair play.
Which suggests to me a commitment to women's sports, but also the fact he's willing to look at infrastructure and ask the difficult questions and not just sit with an infrastructure that is in place and actually maybe disrupt that. Because I think for me the big thing at Chelsea that is a question mark is the scouting and the scouting infrastructure. And I think if we could revolutionise that, get that involved, maybe use data a little bit more. I know he's talked about data in a couple of his statements. To me, that really, is something that Chelsea need to be looking at, because the best clubs in the world are using data now, and that's how they stay ahead of everyone else.
Gus Poyet, if you're listening to this, mate, you're a disgrace, Gus Poyet. Simple as that. You're not involved with.
Listen, Gus Poyet, your time at Chelsea was very well spent. You did a lot of good work at Chelsea. Unfortunately, you kind of went. Yeah. Well. Anyway, things don't always work out the way we want them to work out. Look, guys.
I always recommend a good therapist for you, Gus. So don't worry.
Of course. Yeah, we've got a couple of numbers. Look, guys, I wanna thank Rob. I wanna thank Rob for being here. I mean, guys, listen. Literally messaged him 20 minutes before we went live. All right, and he's here. He's been here for 2 hours, nearly 2 hours and 20 minutes. So, Rob, much appreciated. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your knowledge. I'm sure all the guys in the chat appreciate it, and we definitely appreciate it here on the panel. Guys, the link to Robbie's Twitter account is in the chat. Make sure you click on that. Make sure you go and show that account some love. I'd really appreciate that. Rob,
I've just seen.
Rob has been here a couple of times, Bobby, and you've spoken to him a couple of times as well. Maybe your memory isn't where it used to be, Bobby. I know. This stress we're going through right now. But Rob, listen, I want to give you a chance to give me your final statement and your final thoughts. And what do you want to say to the Chelsea fan base who are listening to the stream right now?
Firstly, anyone that's tuned in, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to me ramble for sort of 2 hours and a bit on ownership and answering questions. I hope it has given people some light into the process. Again, it is a difficult process to talk about because it's very hidden. It's well guarded. Project Caesar, as it's been phrased, is not going to be something that happens in the public eye because sales of major sporting teams are not as simple as just here is some money, here's a club. There's an awful lot of hoops to jump through. If people have more specific questions, you are welcome to reach out to me on Twitter at RGP Journalism. Have some time over the weekend. I will be responding to them. I will also be putting out a bit of a thread probably tomorrow on all of the different bids that we know of and the pros and cons of them. Not my opinions, just literally stated pros and cons. I won't be going into who I think is best, who I think is worst, etc. As I said, the only one I will, probably rule out is Ricketts because of the, the situation around it, because I don't think that's a credible bid in any way, shape, or form. For me, it's just, the right owner needs to come in. They need to come in soon. They need to be committed to funding the club, and there's no reason we can't be more successful. Again, we're still in 2 cup competitions this year. We are currently champions of the world. Chelsea Football Club is a massive brand. Whether rival fans like it or not, we're here to stay. We're here to win more things. And, if they want to continue crying, well, they can cry while we make history.
100%, mate. Spot on.
100%.
Love you, mate. Love you.
Rob, listen, mate. Again, thank you for coming on. Hopefully, we'll have you on once we get the the answer to the big question of who's going to buy the club. And you know, we'll stay connected. We'll stay connected, Rob. Thank you, my brother. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you on the other side.
Cheers, Rob.
Cheers, Rob.
Take care.
Thank you. Rob, his link is there on the screen and there in the chat. People, do me a favor and follow Rob. You will get some good information and a good insight. And Rob does a lot of work for the Chelsea women's team and the Chelsea community. And he is, like I said, a journalist that works alongside the Chelsea socials. Look, lads, I want to give everyone on the screen here a couple of minutes to give me their final thoughts and impressions of where we are. I'm going to start with, let me see, I'm going to start with Chris. We'll go with Chris and work our way around. So Chris, give me your final thoughts in respect to the deadline day.
My thoughts on deadline day. You know what? I thought it would be a bit, not nervous, but a bit, kind of anxious to, see what would happen. But, I've been speaking to, a few Chelsea supporters throughout the day, and they've been like kind of nervous. I've just been kind of calm, because at the end of the day, we can't control really who owns the club. We've all expressed we want to be the owner. The majority is Saudis, and obviously whoever wants the Americans. That's their opinion. That's up to them. But in terms of deadline day, there seems to be a lot of the Saudis, the Todd, Nick Candy with his partners. Apparently Martin Broughton and Lord Sebastian Coe's apparently put a bid in as well. So it's been interesting. It's kind of the names, but something in the back of my mind saying someone that's not been named is still there, just sitting back, having a can of iron brew and having a good time, just waiting to see what happens with the bid. But yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all, because I think, ambition. I've always spoken about it, ambition, and hopefully that's what the owner has. So overall, lads, it's been a good stream. Big up to Rob, who came on and obviously answered the questions and interacted with the panel and the chat as well. So overall, lads, it's been I thought it'd be more of an eventful deadline day, but this is the way it is. But that's my second time in the Blue Lounge today, Mo, isn't it? Obviously the Champions League draw. Yeah. We had the Champions League draw. I was going to talk about that for a little minute, but do you guys want to talk about that for a little minute? What do you guys think? Well, no, basically, I'm going to have to go anyway, but what I'll do is I'll just say the final bit on that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want any predictions, you know who to come to, because...
Listen, lads, go watch my Champions League stream. It was a live reaction, and Chris was reacting. Actually, Chris was predicting. He wasn't reacting. I was reacting. He was predicting, and he was spot on. So let's not spoil it for them. Those of you who haven't seen it, go watch it, and you'll get what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I predicted that, and I predicted other things. Anyway,
don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. I just said don't spoil it.
I predicted other things, but overall, lads, deadline day. Hopefully, in my opinion, we get the Saudis, but obviously, whoever come in, we're going to have to support them anyway. Even if it's Americans that come in, we're just going to have to support them. And who knows? In 5 years' time, we might have won 2 Premier Leagues and another Champions League and whatever. And I mean, I'll have egg on my face. But you know what? In terms of Chelsea's future, I'll gladly accept having egg on my face if I'm proven wrong. So, but yeah, lads, big up yourselves. It was a pleasure to be back on, and have a good. What is it? Have a good Saturday night. Have a good Saturday night, lads. Have a good one. Friday night. What am I doing? Have a good weekend. I see I'm all over the place.
Are you going to give us a couple of Arabic words that you've been learning? Are you going to say like?
Okay, here we are. Right. Okay, you put me on the spot here. Right. So, al haba. That's hello. Yes.
Marhaba. I told you, marhaba.
Malhaba. That's obviously hello.
Yeah.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, but
it's totally
but I don't want you to say hello. I want you to say goodbye, innit? Because you're going, not coming.
Maro, no. I was going to say a footballer there, Marek Hamsik. No, it's Mahara. Oh, mate, you put me on the spot, man.
Ma'as-salama.
Whenever the next stream is, I promise I'll learn more key phrases. I can't just keep saying
look. like Chris, if the Saudis bid is accepted,
Yeah.
I'm gonna change my stream into pure Arabic. So unless you speak Arabic, you can't be talking.
I'll just use Google Translate, mate. I'll just kind of type in, see what happens.
Big up, Chris. Thank you
Big up,
for
man. Big up.
your time today. I've had you on 2 streams tonight, so we'll be working overtime. I'll make sure I'll add a couple of P's on top of that paycheck for you, mate.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good night.
Take care,
brother.
Take care.
Big up. All right, I'm gonna go to Nick. Nick Blue. Final thoughts on today, mate. Let me hear it.
Yes, after this great emotional day, I feel a little bit better. The last 2 weeks, I've been telling I couldn't sleep a wink for the 2 weeks, because of all these sanctions against our club and against Roman. Just got to me, and I'm glad it's nearly over. But next week we will have a new owner, and like Rob said, we don't want the rickets. We don't need these people, and I'm sure it won't be them. We don't know for sure. It could be Nick Candy and his lot or Saudi Arabian group. So, we don't know for sure. It could be someone like Chris said, we haven't even heard about. It could be someone we don't know at all. He will just come out the blue and buy Chelsea, like Roman did that time. He shocked us. We didn't know a thing about him till he came to us. So let's hope it's another Roman 2. Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah, that's it really. And it cheered me up a lot today because it wasn't just old fans like me there today. I saw a lot of young Chelsea fans as well, which really, I was very pleased to see. Yeah, very pleased. Yeah, so
fantastic.
Big up to everyone. Up the Blues, and we will win everything again.
We will continue to march on, and don't forget, in case you've forgotten, Chelsea play in the FA Cup tomorrow.
Oh yes, I was going to say that. Yeah, we've got Middlesbrough with no fans.
Middlesbrough. Yeah,
no fans.
Well, I think it's 600 fans, so. Yeah. 600 fans, I think, bought a ticket already, so they're going to be there. But yeah, hopefully, hopefully we can win that, and for the next game we'll have a full allocation of tickets. Hopefully. Nick Blue, always a pleasure to have you on. Take care of yourself, brother, and we will see you again.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks
have a good night.
Me, Take
Cheers,
care.
bro. Good night, brother. Good night. All right, I'm going to go to Eric Blue. I'm hoping he's here. Eric, you here? Eric Blue. Yeah, I had a feeling.
I was just gonna wait and see how long I could. No. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
All right, brother. Give me your final thoughts, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's obviously it's been a difficult few weeks. I think it's about a month at this point. I'm not sure exactly when the whole thing with Roman started. But hopefully we can have a good transition. And no matter what people want to say, I cannot overlook what Roman has done for this club. As a football supporter, as a supporter of Chelsea, I will always appreciate what he's done for us. I can never pretend like it didn't happen. I just move on like nothing happened. So that is something that I have to say. Hopefully we get owners who are remotely as ambitious as Roman, even a little bit. That would help. That would be a huge, it would be a huge confidence boost. It would help the fans, to be more positive about the future. And hopefully, like Chris kept saying over and over, we want owners who are ambitious. We want owners who have the best intentions for the club. So that is what we want to see. Hopefully that's what we get. And hopefully it can just get done as soon as possible so that, people can stop with this, negativity and, this, doom and gloom. We can just move on from it and and continue with with what we enjoy to do, which obviously we'll still be watching. We'll still enjoy the games, but we don't have to have this cloud hanging over us anymore. The fans can actually buy merchandise from the shop. Fans who don't have season tickets can actually go to the games. We can just go back to being an actual football club. That would be nice. So hopefully we get to that. Obviously, the game tomorrow, it's not in doubt. We're going to win that game. The tie, the Champions League tie, I completely missed the draw for it.
You can go back and watch it. Go back and watch it. Yeah,
I'll go back. Yeah, for sure. But I missed it. But that's a very interesting tie. We played them last season. We're going to play them again. They're looking a lot better than last season.
They are in form. They are in form. Yeah, they were dangerous. Yeah. They were dangerous animal. Real Madrid this year.
They're quite dangerous. Yeah. But if somehow we get through that and win, then you have to look at our chances and really.
Liverpool, Atletico Madrid will be next. If we beat them, Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, I believe
it's going to get tougher. Yeah, but
and I think we might get Bayern Munich in the final. Bayern Munich, is it Bayern Munich or is it
it depends.
Is it Liverpool? Yeah, it's a long road ahead of us, and every game is going to be hard. I mean, it's only going to get harder.
The semi-finals are going to be very entertaining for the neutrals. Yeah. I'm sure the neutrals would love watching those games. So it's going to be interesting, man. I think there will be at least, hopefully, one more trophy. I think we're not done yet. Hopefully, we can win one more, even though we should have already won, one more. But we'll leave that to the side. And yes, I'm still optimistic about the future. It's going to take a lot for me to lose hope and become, negative and pessimistic. So I'm very measured with the whole situation. I'm not worried, like Chris said, I'm calm, and let's see what happens. And obviously, no matter what happens, we're going to be here. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be Chelsea fans will continue to be around and watch the games, no matter who the owner is, no matter what people are saying outside. Obviously, it's not a very being a Chelsea fan right now isn't the most popular thing to do. It's not. It doesn't sound so nice, but we're here in the good times and we're here in the bad times. So we'll just keep the blue flag flying, and we'll keep hoping for the best and keep supporting the team.
Spot on, fantastic. I hope whoever comes in will continue the tradition and the legacy of respect that has been built by Roman Abramovich, and move forward in that same capacity. Eric Blue, thank you very much. Much appreciated, brother. We will see you tomorrow, post-match reaction.
Yes, I will be there tomorrow. I know I've been missing some streams, but I will definitely be here tomorrow. I don't want to keep Julius too much longer. Okay. See you.
Have a good night, Eric. Take care, brother.
Take it easy, Eric. Bye,
see you tomorrow, Eric. Bye bye. All right, Julius. I know we've kept you waiting. I know it's been tough, but hopefully not too tough. Brother, give me your final remarks.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I'm not very optimistic when it comes to the Champions League. I think it's going to be very, very tough. But who knows, it can still happen. Regarding the owners, personally, my preference would be if we are owned by the Saudis, because we have a good record overall with clubs that are owned by Arabs. They are run pretty well, and they're generous when it comes to pumping money into the club to sustain it. Otherwise, my second option, I like the sound of Nick Candy, to be honest with you, with his passion. I feel someone like him would make sure we are on the right track as well. I've heard that the people he's partnered with are worth a lot of money as well. I think one of them is worth like £10 billion or something. So yeah, looking forward. For the rival fans thinking that we're gonna be gone, you're that drunk. We're gonna be here competing, and And who knows? Look, Abramovich has been a great owner. There was a lot of things I didn't agree with how we run the club when it comes to firing managers and stuff, and being ruthless. But he was an unbelievable owner. We thank him for everything he's done. Now I'm very excited and looking forward to see the new model. Maybe we'll have more longevity with managers, especially that we have Tuchel. So fingers crossed. I want to say thanks for everyone. Bobby, good to see you. DJ, good to see you. Mo, we'll keep in touch.
Definitely, brother. And I hope you get well soon, very soon. And I'm thankful to have had you with us tonight. So it's been a pleasure, brother. I'll see you soon.
Pleasure.
Take care.
See you.
Take care, Julius.
Have a good night. Have a good night. Bobby and DJ, do you guys have to go, or do you have a couple of minutes? Because I want to address the Saudi thing. I can do it after you guys give me your statements, or before.
I've got a couple of minutes, but I can stay.
What about you, Bobby? You're good for a couple of minutes, Bobby? I'm guessing he is. Look, guys, in regards to the Saudi bid, the bid has been submitted. The details that were apparent or that were given to us was a £2.7 billion bid. And we all know the structure of what the Saudi consortium, the Saudi media group, intended to do, and their plan for the club, for the future of the club. That's all been documented and it's been talked about. So I'm not going to go back and discuss that. Now, the only concern, and Rob mentioned it a couple of times because the question was posed a couple of times. The only concern is, how is this bid going to be treated in respect to the investment? Because in the past, the British government were very strict in allowing Newcastle to be bought by a Saudi government-backed entity. So will these restrictions, will this scrutiny that was implemented for the Saudi bid for Newcastle also apply for Chelsea? Possibly. And this is why there is a little bit of hesitation in respect to the Saudi bid. That being said, if the Saudi bid, as claimed, does not have any ties to the Saudi government and can prove that and can state that and can show that, then the conditions and the transaction will run a lot smoother and a lot quicker. However, if they can't show it, it will be problematic. And knowing the Crown Prince or being friends with the royal family doesn't necessarily qualify as being linked to the government. Because as we all know, a lot of the billionaires, in fact all of the billionaires, have ties to the governments that they are associated with. In America, with Trump, with Biden, with whoever, with George Bush previously. In the UK, again, with with members of parliament, with the Prime Minister, and wherever you're going to go, people of power, people of wealth will be or will have connections to the government, but these connections don't necessarily imply that they are working for the government. Therefore, they are on the payroll. Therefore, there is a conflict of interest or a certain problem when it comes to a particular owner owning two clubs, because Mohammed bin Salman can't own Newcastle and Chelsea Football Club, even though he's doing it through a consortium. He can't do it. It won't happen. This entity, the Saudi media group, who are the Middle East broadcasting channel, center, whatever, they are not tied to the government as per their statement. And if they can prove that, then that's all that they have to do. So those of you who are concerned why Nazar Kinsella isn't replying to messages and whatnot, it's because the doors literally closed 2 hours ago. And no one knows exactly what is happening. And don't forget, this organization is in America. So business has closed for the night. Tomorrow is Saturday. What's going to happen, we don't know. Sunday, probably nothing. And Rob did suggest that Monday will be a good time for us to get some concrete information. There'll be information leaked over the next couple of days. But to get concrete information, we are going to have to wait possibly till Monday. And possibly Monday afternoon, evening, because of the time difference between us and the United States. As the group is based there, therefore they are working from there. I'm not sure if they have an office here. It's all speculation right now. But this is where we are in respect to the Saudi bid. Don't worry, don't concern yourselves. And again, if the Saudi bid doesn't get accepted, it's not the end of the world. As long as we get a bid that is accepted with Chelsea and the fans at heart as a priority, developing the first team, the women's team, the academy, the ground, the stand, the stadium. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for Chelsea Football Club. Yes, we're in a very good position. We're in a fantastic position. But whoever comes in has got some work to do, because we want to see improvement. We want to see growth. So that's where we are. That's where we are. I just wanted to address that because I know a lot of you are concerned in the chat. Let me go to... I'm actually going to leave DJ to the end. I'm going to go to Bobby. Bobby, final thoughts, mate.
Yeah, just before that, I want to clear up this pathway in the Champions League. Should we get through Real Madrid, we would meet in the semi-finals, the winner between Man City and Atletico. So the path is not easy. I don't know. At this point,
Sorry, Bobby, that means we could potentially meet Liverpool or Bayern Munich in the final.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Presuming they get through their quarterfinals as well.
Yeah.
So, there's no given in any of these competitions. It looks very, very challenging for us. It's not impossible. It looks very challenging. Do we dare to start to dream? Maybe. Certainly, if we get to the semi-final stage, I think you start to dream. And boy, that would be an achievement beyond any. Simply because I always maintain this, that out of adversity comes forth greatness. And we have to really, wow, if we could really cement that with such a victory, it will be astonishing. But that aside, I don't want to focus on that too much yet. It's very premature. I just think, the owners, I'm under no illusions. Chelsea Football Club at this point in time is high finance in order to get to the next level. Anybody coming to buy it cannot do less than Roman. They have to do more. They have to take on the mantle and move onwards. If not, the whole point will be brought to dust. They, the government, and everything will always be remembered for the biggest debacle in sporting history. And nobody wants to be tarnished in that way. So they would want to, and they would need to have the financial capacity to move Chelsea on. The stadium, the consolidation of what has been created already, and of course the investment in players, whether it's tying them down to contracts, whether it's giving a long-term contract to the manager, which I think is just logical. That really has to be the way to go.
A lot needs to be done. And I think
a lot needed to be done in Newcastle. A lot needed to be done at Man City. So,
but Bobby, the thing is this. For me, it's having that plan, knowing what needs to be done. because we as fans, we've been around the club for years, and we know what needs to be addressed, and when what hasn't been addressed, and what has been pushed aside and being delayed. We know these things, but the owners will come in, and this is why I think it's key that we have a transition, a good handover.
A transition is obvious to me. It makes who's going to come in and say, right, everybody out, we in. It doesn't make sense. There has to be a transition, even if it's just 2 weeks. I think those that are overtly sentimental, expecting the old guard to be there, there are too many ties to Rome, and for someone, for example, like Marina to be there, she will be part of a transition and she will move on. Would that break my heart? Not necessarily. She's not Chelsea Football Club. She's not one of the players. She's done very well, but I don't really hold any sentiments there. What would worry me more would be Petr Cech, because he is one of the players and he is somebody that needs to be linked with the longevity of the club. The one thing that does worry me about the bidders is Nick Candy's bid sounds too much like a political pitch. It's too good to be true. I haven't seen the operational capability. The bigger it gets, the more uncomfortable I get with that consortium. I mean, I love what he's saying, but it just sounds, Rob got all excited about it, and I'm like, it's too much being said. Whereas, there's a certain amount that can be said, which is enough, and then there should be some silence for the deal to go through. And then these are the sort of things to be said once you're in there. But, you're looking for bidders from South Korea, you're looking for people from Europe, you're looking for people from Britain. I mean, these are not people that, if anything goes wrong, are going to give up 1.5 billion to the club in written off debt. They're going to want their pounds worth. So I'm not sure about his bid at all. As for the Ricketts family, I think it's unpopular based on his clearly sort of racist statements, Islamophobic statements. I'm not into all this, orange man bad Donald Trump thing. I think that's very political. And I don't think you can blame somebody for his friends, because, as you say, they all have political lineage, whether it's Biden, Trump, Xi Jinping, whatever their name is, they all know them. Boris himself. So I don't think that is the issue. The issue is what came out of his mouth and what has repeatedly come out of his mouth, which is a big problem. And we need to distance ourselves from that sort of thing. At the moment, for me, as far as, the Saudis, they sound very attractive. But yet again, if there are links to places where they cannot explain, that's a problem. So it does look like this Bowley chap is quite, quite much in the forefront. However, we don't know who the ones are in the background. So it is very, very much a wait and see situation with this.
Definitely wait and see. The biggest thing for me right now is tomorrow's match. Chelsea, Middlesbrough, FA Cup. It'll be good to stream tomorrow because it'll be talking about the sport and the club that we love, rather than talking about business and dealings and banks and mission statements and whatnot. So I'll be looking forward to talking about football tomorrow. Bobby, I hope to see you tomorrow evening to watch or to talk about the game in the post-match stream. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Brother, always a pleasure having you on. Take care of yourself and have a good night.
As always, thanks for having me.
Take care, Bobby.
Cheers, Bobby.
Cheers, bro. Take it easy, mate.
All right. As I say, I always leave the best to last. No disrespect to the guys before you, but DJ brother, it's been a fantastic stream. I have to admit, and again, I messaged Rob literally just before we went live, like 20 minutes, and I wasn't sure if you could make it or not, and I said, look, mate, I'd love to have you on. Here's the link. If you can. If you have time, please come on. And when I saw him coming on, I'm like, wow, because today is a proper busy day. for him to make time for us, big thank you and a big shout out to Rob for doing that. DJ,
Yeah.
you've heard what Rob said. We've been reading
Yes.
the news. We've been following it, and I know you follow it more intensely than most. So, what's your feelings, man? What's your take on this?
Yeah, first of all, echoing to what you just said about Rob, bro. Yeah, big up to Rob. It was actually great to get his points of view across to us and his reviews on what things on what was talked about today. It kind of like made me, kind of got me a bit because I was thinking what was going to happen with our club. I'll have to say I was a bit worried this morning, waking up thinking what's going to happen, because not only have to go at the Champions League draw, but we've also got this thing on top of us as well, thinking what's going to happen, mate. Look, the Champions League draw, I'm not really. I said from the beginning, I think I said it in one of your streams earlier on when I came on there, and I said, look, whether it's Atletico Madrid, whether it's Benfica, Villarreal or Real Madrid, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we got one of them. We got Real Madrid, so we have to get on with it now. We beat them last season, mate. I don't see why we can't do it again. Yeah, they've improved their team, so we've got that winning mentality. We're holders, so I'm not worried about that. As for the bidding for Chelsea, well, look, we all know, mate, how this whole thing's going to go. We've seen the people or the final three that are going to be the ones who are going to be talked about by the Rain Group next week. I think we've all said here, majority of us, I think we all know where we want to go down with it, or who we want. Like Bobby's pointed out about Nick Candy, yeah, I was saying the same thing. For me, it seems like there's too many people involved in this deal. I mean, I know only he's got this vision he's got for Chelsea with the ground. Trying to get some people on board with fans on the board, fan forums and things like that. He wants to do. But look, for me, mate, I just think it's just too much in it. But again, he sounds like it still seems optimistic, because this guy obviously has got this vision. He's a Chelsea fan as well, so we can't take that away from him as well. As for the other two, Todd Bowley, he's I think of all the all the American ones that come in for us, I do believe I think his was probably the best one, I think, out of everyone that came in. From listening to what he was saying and his vision, what his vision is as well. He's obviously got, and he's obviously used to it with his franchise he's doing at the moment. So he's going to come in and say he's going to build a new stadium, do whatever he needs to do. He'll probably follow that all through. So yeah, I guess out of all of them, he was probably the one I'd have probably said yes out of the American ones that came. But I think the one we all want, and I think the one we were talking about, is the Saudi group, mate. I think they're the ones that really intrigue me. The guy's a Chelsea fan as well. He does come to Chelsea, a season ticket holder as well, so he follows them, not just a one-off. He comes to almost every match. So and his plans that he's lined out as well for us for the future looks good as well and promising. He wants to sort of things out with the ladies team, put money into the youth setup, and develop. Do some work at Stamford Bridge, develop Stamford Bridge. So that to me is all the good things we all want to hear as fans. So for me, look, it's between those three. Obviously, I know who I'm going to go for. I think we both know who I want to go for on that. I don't want to say it because I don't want to be political here. But yeah, I know who I want. And I really, really hope that, should they know where this person's funds are coming from, bear in mind that our Prime Minister has just only gone to Dubai to sort out a deal for petrol and oil. Shouldn't really, really cause any problems there either, because it would just maybe double standards.
Saudi. He went to Saudi.
Yeah. But it'll still be, to me, it'll still be double, or Saudi, but it'll still be double standard if you was to turn away the bid from these people. So, look, for me, we've got to be optimistic about it, mate. I'm confident it will happen. As long as all I want now is my club to be opened, season tickets to be sold, us functioning normally as a normal football ground, and getting back at Stamford Bridge and watching games again, mate. That's, going and following our team, and that's what we all want, and seeing our team back up there again, mate. And for me, it will happen. But it's going to take some time. But we'll get there. But I'm confident. I'm confident for the future. And all we can do is whoever comes in, we'll drag our club up to be more successful than what Roman's done. No one's going to beat Roman. Let's not kid ourselves. Whoever comes in, Roman was the best ever owner, and that's how it should. That's how I look at it. And he'll come in, and whoever comes in will have to obviously take us up to that next level again. Well, take us up from where we are already, but up again. Again, we need to go. So yeah, I'm bright. The future's bright. Middlesbrough tomorrow's the game I want to concentrate on now. We got a win tomorrow, mate. That's the number one in the FA Cup. We can't forget about that. We've got to win that game. And again, I'm confident, as always, we're going to win, bro. As always.
Yeah. We're in a good vein of form right now.
Yes, we are.
So, it's tricky because of the circumstances. I mean, Chelsea Middlesbrough wouldn't have concerned us at all. But because of the circumstances we're in, it just has a little bit more weight on it. It feels a little bit heavier. We've also missing a couple of players, some key players. So that is, that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I can't see us losing, and I hope we don't lose because we want to keep the positivity up, and I'm hoping we'll get a good result. DJ, we'll see you tomorrow in the post-match reaction, hopefully to celebrate a win. It's good to have you on, my brother. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me on as always, bro. And again, it was great talking to everybody, all my brothers that I talked to on here. Great seeing them all and chatting to them all. And thank you again, man. Big up to you, and have a lovely evening, bro. All right.
You too, my brother. I will see you tomorrow. Take care and good night, my friend.
Bro. See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, lads. Let me just check something. All right, we're 199 likes. We are 1 like away from 200. Can you guys do it for me? Look, whatever happens, I hope we get the buyer that will be for Chelsea and all about Chelsea, fans and the club. That's what we want to see. That's what I want to see. We're all talking about this bidder, that bidder, whoever. End of the day, whoever comes in, I want them to be for Chelsea. And I don't want them to have a black mark in their history that will bite us in the arse in the future. We don't want to have that. People, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the stream. We will be back live tomorrow for a post-match reaction video for Chelsea Middlesbrough. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and join us on the Blue Lounge, in the Blue Lounge family, and I will see you tomorrow night or tomorrow evening for another stream. Take care of yourselves. Thank you for your time. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night. Peace.